Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's episode of Futon Talks, where we will actually tell you the subject of the episode before we're 20 minutes in. We're talking about Returnal this week. I think it's like April's big release, unless you like Resident Evil, but who's heard of that? So we're pretty excited to talk about it. My name's Josh Castro, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Christopher Midling.
That's me. That's
you.
My name.
That is your name. It's on your birth certificate and everything. I'm so excited to talk to you, man.
Me too. It's been a long time.
Yeah. It's been
a week.
A day. It's not like we talk to each other every day. But no, this is exciting. Obviously, there's going to be spoilers in here. So if you are one of the millions who have not yet found a PS5, listen anyway, at your own risk, though, because there's going to definitely be spoilers for this game. And I don't think you want to play this game while being spoiled. I think that a lot of the enjoyment of this game comes from the twists and turns as you navigate its biomes. So
I agree.
So yeah, just a big fat warning for you. If if you don't want to be spoiled but you still want to help us, just play this in the background for your baby or something. Who knows? Just put it outside. Let it play. Let the ads fall on fake ears or ears that do not exist, perhaps. But anyways, please, just play it on loop. Don't worry. You don't actually have to hear us. But
yeah, don't listen to us. Just have us play.
Exactly. That's what I do to boost our listens. I'm just kidding. I've never done that. but we have a lot to say. We got a lot to get through. So I think we ought to.
That's true.
We ought to get going here. And as is customary for Futon Talks, the show where we take a look back at the things we missed, or in this case, didn't miss at all, we'd like to start by saying the 3 words that come to mind when asked to describe this game in as simple of terms as possible. So, Chris, would you like to kick us off by giving me 3 tasty words to describe Returnal?
I'd love to do that, Josh.
Thank you, Christopher.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So these came to me while I was playing the game. And they came quite quickly. First one was instantaneous. The second, panic. And the third, frenetic.
Ooh, frenetic. I really like those words, especially the panic. Very relatable word choice.
Thank you.
Yeah,
but what about you, Josh? What are the 3 words that come to mind?
Man, I think that the words that come to my mind, one of them would be pain, which is like an explanation of what it feels like to play the game, but also just a big
That'd
theme
be my
in the
4th
game.
word.
Just pain. Like confusion. And then like, this could sound weird, but Helios. But like, not just in the sense of the way the word is used, but also in the sense of like understanding sight and light, if that makes sense. Like an ultimate
for sure.
transcendence, if that makes sense.
I have, if you allow it, one more word.
Sure, cheater.
Thanks. Irresponsible.
Irresponsible. Hey, I get you, I think. That is very interesting. Man, dude, I don't know how to, like, do we want to tackle understanding the story first? I don't think we can talk about anything else without doing that. And the reason I say that is because of your words. I mean, irresponsible, I think that plays obviously into the narrative, and so does Helios. Like, we can, if you want, we can do it in a different way, but I think there's not going to be any way to avoid it. I think we have to talk about the narrative.
You guide me, I'll follow.
I think we got to. Otherwise, we're going to start talking about bosses, and we'll try to talk about the narrative, and we won't be able to. So, again, last warning for you guys. There's nothing really to spoil gameplay-wise. I mean, this game is pretty straightforward, but
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, it's awesome. So you should play super fun to play. But if you hear the narrative explained before you play it, it's really not. I think it takes away.
Should people buy this game?
Oh, I don't know.
$70?
It's hard. Because, like, I try to be really measured in what I say, especially when I'm recommending like for people to buy stuff, you know. And this is the kind of game I have a really hard time just straight up recommending to everybody, to like every average person, you know. Like, number one, if you don't like hard games, like you shouldn't play this game, you know. Like if you don't like challenging video games, it's not a game for you, you know, because it's just challenging to the point where I really enjoyed it and I felt like it was a good challenge. But I know that for a lot of people I know, like when they ask me for game recommendations, often they specifically ask, like, I haven't gamed in a long time. I hate that as a verb that game can be used, but like, you know, like they say, hey, I'm not super keen on doing something difficult. I just want to relax, right? So I'm not sure I could.
For sure.
But I think that it's and I don't know. I have problems with this game, although I like it. I think that you have to, number one, enjoy difficult games. Number two, you have to be the kind of person that likes the lore of like Dark Souls. And to explain, it's just like, to understand this story, I had to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and do a ton of research into Greek mythology. So, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, they don't hold your hand in the combat. They don't hold your hand in what you're supposed to do. They don't hold your hand in the story in ways that are often really frustrating as opposed to challenging, if that makes sense. Now, I still like this game, and after understanding the narrative, I found it to be really compelling and powerful. But I think they needed to give the player a little bit more in a lot of instances, and them not doing that really soured the experience for me, even though I ended up liking it. So I find it hard to recommend it for, you know, $70. I think you can get a lot of good games for $70. And I just think that you should wait for this game to be on sale for $40-$30, and then you should definitely buy it because it's worth it. But I think that there are problems that make this game not worth $70, if that makes sense. I know that, and I know that's a little controversial, but that's how I feel about it.
Interesting.
And I'll get into that more. It's kind of hard to explain what I mean without first talking about what happens in the game, if that makes sense. But well, what do you think, man? Because I sense that you feel differently.
I do feel a little different. I think you should definitely, like, if you like Housemarque, which is the developer, and this is like their first big AAA game, because all they've done really is Resogun or Super Stardust. And if you're, so I'm not trying to say if you're like a fanboy, but if you are a fan of PlayStation, if you're a fan of Housemarque and you want them to make more AAA games, I think you should pay the $70. And personally, I'm happy I paid the $140 because I got the digital and physical edition. I think it's definitely worth it to pay $70 because, yeah, I honestly didn't think the game was that hard. And if you're just in it for the story or just in it for the gameplay, I think it's totally worth it. But if you're a trophy hunter, it might be a little harder to pay that $70 because of how many things could go wrong and just the RNG of the whole game can be pretty frustrating for a lot of the collectibles. But
I love it. And I'm glad that we disagree. I think people might be afraid, or people that listen might think we just agree on everything, so it's probably actually good that we disagree for once. But yes. we'll definitely come back to it. I'm sure we'll have a whole segment probably after we finish our like preliminary discussion on the narrative. We'll probably come back and just talk about what we didn't like and what we liked, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you want, I have some bullets here. Not the ones you shoot, but the ones that, you know, are before letters. Would you like me to kind of just go over my interpretation of the story and then you can respond with what you thought? Anyway, I'll share my insights, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fun.
It better sound fun because you don't have a choice. So here we go.
I know.
Here we go. By the way, first of all, before I start talking, big thanks and kudos to Yoderp, which is an interesting YouTube name. but it's a guy on YouTube. He only has like 99 subscribers, but he did a great job breaking down the story of this game in a way that I didn't feel like anyone else did. So go check out Yoder. He has a great video on this. And I'm about to steal everything he said. But
Do it.
so here we go. It all ties back into the Greek mythology, but I'll give a simple overview of what's going on from the character, from the player's perspective. Yes. So you're Selene, right? And Selene has crash landed her ship called Helios on a planet called Atropos. And she quickly finds out, after being killed by an alien, that she is trapped in a time loop of sorts, kind of like, freaking Groundhog Day, which I couldn't remember the name of for some reason. It's a lot like Edge of Tomorrow, which is not as good of a movie, but I like it. But anyways, you're in this time loop where you wake up after you die, and then you have to go, and the game is kind of like a roguelike in that you find new weapons and new consumables and new artifacts, which are pretty much just temporary buffs that last the entire run every time you go out into the world. The game is separated into different biomes, which are gatekept by a boss at the end of them. And as you beat these bosses, you gain permanent upgrades, like a grapple hook or the ability to see things in the environment that you can shoot and make platforms out of. And it's kind of like a Metroidvania. And this game definitely feels like a spiritual successor to Metroid, especially if you know about some of the story beats in Metroid. This is like the next Metroid. So if you like Metroid, definitely get this game. But different areas and different stuff is unlocked as you gain these new permanent abilities. Anyways, that's the overview of the basic game. The story, you crash, and you slowly uncover that you, Selene, have been on Atropos for light years, she says at one point, for eons. You just find, like, your corpses everywhere, and you find these logs that you've left for yourself, and you slowly begin to uncover what happened to get you there. And you also begin to realize that the planet is much more or much less than it seems, as you find manifestations of yourself and of your past on the planet. For example, a really big one is you find your house from your childhood. And every time you approach the house, there's 6 of these events. You go into the house, and again, it's like a gross jungle, and then there's just your house out of the middle of this weird scenario, right? It's out of nowhere. Anyways, you enter the house and you have these hallucinations which shed light onto what was going on before this mission, essentially. And I'm going to tell you my interpretation of what happened from this point on. But I think from this point on, it's actually pretty open to debate as to what went on. Because I watched like 5 or 6 YouTube videos, and they all said something like pretty different, which I thought was pretty wild. So here we go. Selene, her mother's name was Thea, and Thea had always wanted to be an astronaut as well, just like her daughter Selene. And her ambition to be an astronaut always kept her busy and away from Selene, essentially. And Selene's very bitter about that. If you read the logs and read notes scattered around the house, you see that Selene is very bitter towards her mom, and they didn't have a good relationship, and Selene felt very neglected. And then that's pretty much the first 2. You learn that you had a toy named Octo, and that your mom and you don't have a good relationship.
Yeah.
Then there's another one, which is a big turning point, which is when you are a child. Now, when I played this game, I thought the child was Selene, but it isn't. It's Helios, her kid. Selene had a son named Helios. Now, if you leave the room as Helios and you try to go back into the room, the door slams shut in front of you, and with stickers on the door, like you would in a child's room, it says Helios on the door as like a label. So that's not Selene, that's Helios, which is really, it changes everything.
That's wild. I did not know that.
I know, right? So Helios goes downstairs, right? And then he goes into the kitchen. And another thing that tipped me off that it wasn't Selene is that there's a message left for you from Selene.
From Selene, yeah.
Yeah, talking to her kid. And then you go and you sit at the table and you're with an astronaut, which you later, at the end of the game, you learn the astronaut is Celine, right? And you try to tell the astronaut a story, and the astronaut just doesn't listen to you and is distant. And anyways, but the point is that the main thing you gather from this is that Helios was your kid and that you are not that child. Anyways, fast forwarding a lot here, you learned that Celine had a really traumatic incident where there was a car crash. Mm-hmm. And now, when I first played the game, I thought that Thea was the one driving. But my interpretation is that Celine was driving and Helios was in the back seat. And Celine swerves off the road because there's an astronaut on the road, right?
Yeah.
But there's not really an astronaut on the road, because why would there be? What I think happened is that Celine had been rejected from the Astrocorp, right? She wasn't allowed to be an astronaut. We have notes about that, where they tell her that she can't do it, she's not fit to serve. And along with that, she glances down and she's like distracted, and because of her like grief and like unhappiness at not being accepted into this program, she accidentally drives off the bridge and kills her son. So it's not really that, there was actually something in the road. It's that it's her brain trying to tell her like, oh my gosh, like your ambition and your selfishness killed your kid, essentially. And then obviously she gets, she's in the water and they crash down. She crashes Helios down into the water, right? Pretty a big, what's the word? A mirror that's mirrored later, right? And it's very symbolic.
Foreshadowing.
And anyways, then she can't get to Helios. Helios dies and she swims out to the surface. Anyways, that's kind of a really big overview. There's a bunch of details in there. Would you like me to go over like the Greek mythology stuff and how it ties into that and supports that, or do you want to say what you've got?
I'll say a few things, because honestly, I had no idea that Helios was your son or was a person. I totally thought, because like you said before, the game does not hold your hand for anything
at all,
especially story related stuff. I could have sworn that Celine and Thea were like the same person,
right?
Because we talked a little bit while we were playing the game, and you mentioned something where like it could be a cycle of mother's guilt or something, or a daughter's like hate towards her mom, and it could just be like this constant cycle. And that's why I thought that Celine had a blue and brown eye, because she was both her mom and Celine.
That's kind of
that was my idea.
I like that idea. That's a good one.
Like I thought that would explain it, right? Like they're just the same person. It's just a vicious cycle, like you said. Because like, man, the ending, like when you get that first ending, you're pretty much left with nothing. And when you beat the game again, you're left with even less. Like it's kind of weird how little you could understand or get from any of it.
Yeah.
I probably should have watched some YouTube videos on the story, but that's wild though. That makes so much sense.
It makes a lot more sense. And
they should have just told you that.
Yes. And I know that might be like a weird thing to have a problem with, but I had a problem with that. Like, I shouldn't have to like go to YouTube to understand your game, unless like if your whole thing is like Dark Souls, where nothing is said outside of, like the story isn't the forefront, which in Dark Souls it straight up isn't, right?
Yeah,
like
all
that's
the
not
items
the
and
point.
Stuff you find.
Exactly. Like if you want it, you really have to go looking for it. But with Returnal, it's like front and center, I would say. Like the story's there the entire time. There's cutscenes. Yeah. So I think if you're gonna have a game with like straight up cinematic cutscenes, like you gotta give more.
And so that means Atropos, the planet, is fake, right? It's all in her head.
All in her head. I believe it's a manifestation of like the cycle of grief that she can't escape.
Yeah. Okay.
Because so it's really interesting. I was watching the the cinematic actually earlier today when she crashes for the first time onto Atropos, and right before the missile or whatever, the laser hits her wing, she's like holding the steering wheel. She looks down and she messes with a couple things on the dashboard, looks up, and then gets hit in exactly the same way that she does in the car with the radio. Like the same animations, right? And it's trying to say that when she crashes into the water, that's why you never see her get out of the water, because she's in the water the entire time. It's just this cycle of anguish and grief and pain that she can't escape, right? She's reliving the moment. And yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, a game like this should have really just shown you all this stuff, because it would have been way more powerful seeing it, not to discredit you, than hearing it from you, honestly. Like,
and it was Yoder. It wasn't even me.
I should have my best friend explain the story to me.
No,
I didn't even
agree.
understand there was a sun.
A literal sun.
A literal sun. Yes.
No, I agree, and that's why I have a hard time recommending it. Like, I get that that's not the biggest deal, and I want to support developers, but I don't know. I think that they should have done something to make this game. Because I feel like they did a disservice to the game itself. Because there's a great story there that they didn't bother to tell. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can really put it together if you read every single xenoglyph, and you read every single book in the house, and you watch every cutscene 5 times. But I think that shouldn't be required of someone to understand your game.
Yeah.
That'd be like a movie showing, random scenes, and then just being like, well, here's the script, go home and read it, and if you can figure it out.
Here's the footnotes.
Right? So I had a big problem with that, because I think that a game shouldn't make me do that, Yeah. But it was still good, and I liked the story. And it becomes even richer when you understand, the Greek mythology behind it. Can I tell you about it a little bit?
Please do.
Dude, it's freaking wild. All right, so here we go. So pretty much every name of any character in the game is a figure in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
So just to lay it all out, Helios is the offspring of the Titans Hyperion, a boss later, and Thea, Selene's mom. And his sister is Selene. In this case, it doesn't really matter. The point is that, Helios is the younger brother of Selene, who is the daughter of Thea. Now, I'm going to go down, and I have some quotes from Google that say what these figures were, pretty much just like an encapsulation
here.
Yeah, I know. I Google things, and I believe everything I read. But this is what it says about Selene. It says, Selene has the power to give sleep and to light the night. She has control over time, and like the moon itself, she is ever changing. Another source says that she rides her chariot through the stars. Very interesting. So there's an obvious astronaut connection there. Her control over time and her deal with sleep. I think that's really interesting. Helios was the Titan god of the sun, a guardian of oaths and the god of sight. So he's a protector of bonds, right? And the protector of promises that are broken maybe by a mother, right? And then also he's the god of sight. So he eventually because at the end of the game you have to find these different pieces of a sun disk essentially, and one is in each biome. Anyways, you put it together at the end, and once you put together the sun, Helios, you actually have sight and you can understand what happened and you understand the story. So I thought that was kind of an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Then Thea was the Titan goddess of sight, again, and the shining ether of the bright blue sky. She was also, by extension, the goddess who endowed gold and silver with their intrinsic value. So that was kind of interesting. Hyperion is freaking wild. So I'm going to talk about Hyperion last, because I actually have the most to say about him. But Atropos, I think, is probably the most famous one. She was one of the 3 goddesses of the Fates, or she was one of the 3 Fates, essentially. She was Moirai, and her role as one of the Fates was to cut the cloth. So she decided how and when people died, essentially.
Okay.
Which is interesting for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I can save Hyperion if you'd like for when we talk about bosses, or I could talk about it now. What would you like?
Just talk about them now. We'll talk about. I feel like when we talk about the bosses, we'll be talking more about the actual act of facing them.
Makes sense.
So please go on.
So Hyperion. I would again like to put a little disclaimer here that everything I'm about to say is not for me. I didn't figure this out at all. This was all Yoderp. But Hyperion is Selene's father, and I'll read the description of him first. His name comes from the Greek, which means the one who watches from above or who watches from afar. He is said to be the first to understand the cycles of the sun, the stars, the moon, and the dawn, or to even have ordered them in the first place. So, it's obviously he watches from above, he watches from afar, he's like an astronaut. But the insight that I thought was insane that Yoder says on YouTube is that, number one, he's her father, and then he talks about a xenoglyph, which is those big, monoliths that you can read in the environment. And it says this endless song bleeding out into space, the inescapable ascent from the abyss of self and the planet, where I found Hyperion waiting upon the spire, bound to an organ. I never spoke to him afterwards or heard his music again. So, throughout the game, whenever you die, you see little glimpses of Selene doing things. And one of the things I noticed most throughout my playthrough was her playing a piano. Yeah. And during some of the segments in the house, you can go up to the piano and play it. And it makes me think that maybe her father is the one who taught her how to play the piano. The first thing she says to Hyperion during the boss fight is, "Are you the one who taught me this song?" And then she goes on and talks about the relationship she might have with this being who taught her the song. Anyways, the important thing is this last line of the xenoglyph, is that he's bound to the organ, but I never spoke to him afterwards or heard his music again. And what Yoderp says is that maybe her father played the organ at her son Helios or at her mother's funeral.
The funeral, yeah.
And that she never spoke to him again afterwards. And that's the reason that she hates the music so much in the game. Because I wondered, why is she so tormented by this music? But it would make sense that it reminds her of her loss. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was, fascinating. I never would have thought of that, man. That was crazy.
That's crazy.
But it, makes so much sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
And, he always has his back to you. He never looks at you during the entire fight. And he's the one who watches from afar. He's the one who watches from above. He's just absent, and she's alone. And that's what Atropos is, It's just this place where she has to combat grief. I mean, literally fight her pain and grief in herself, all alone without anyone's help. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, this game is wild and has, crazy, crazy in-depth symbolism. And
So Hyperion has obvious symbolism, but does that mean that Nemesis or Phrike or was it Ophion, do they have any symbolism at all?
Yes.
Oh.
Somewhat. I would say that Hyperion is the most obvious, not necessarily, which is hilarious because it's not obvious at all, But I can go through them really quick because they're all Greek names and they're all people in Greek mythology, and I think that they all contribute to the story in some ways. Mm-hmm. Let's just go through them from the beginning, and then we can go back through the bosses. That can be the first thing we talk about, or something. So the first boss you fight is Phrike. Mm-hmm. Now Phrike was the spirit of horror in Greek mythology. Her name literally means tremor or shivering, i.e. from fear or horror, and has the same stem as the verb to tremble. The term Phrike, personified or not, is widely used in tragedy. In the story, I'm pretty sure that Phrike was the first or one of the first severed, and she was cast into that pit by the sentience in the Citadel. Oh yeah, by the way, there's an alien race on the planet that left tons of structures, and as you go through the story, you're not just discovering Selene's narrative, you're also discovering the narrative of the sentience, or this ancient alien species which mirrors Selene's story. Mm-hmm. Anyways, Phrike, I believe, was the first one to seek out extra power right? And she had this extreme ambition to connect with something greater than herself, and she became severed. And severed is an important word that comes into play a lot in the narrative, especially with the sentients. Anyways, I believe she was cast down into the pit by the sentients in the Citadel because they were afraid of her, thus her name, Frike.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, you defeat her, maybe it's defeating the fear in yourself. I don't know. I was going to ask you about this stuff.
I don't really know. To be severed, is that having meaning towards like family members, or are you defeating like the thing that people see in you, or I don't know.
I think severed is such an interesting word.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with not just cutting yourself off. I think primarily it does mean cutting yourself off from your family, right? From, the race even of the other sentients, from the human race, from your family, from Helios, from Thea. But I think that being severed also means being severed from yourself. Because I think the Atropos, the planet, is Selene, right?
Yeah.
And the sentients are also Selene. So it's making this cut between a part of Selene and another part of Selene, right? Anyways, it's interesting. I don't know exactly what it means because this game doesn't tell you anything, but it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't know. We might have to double back after we get through some of the other bosses, because
No, I'd love to.
know.
I'd love to. Yeah, let me talk about the other ones, and maybe you'll be inspired.
maybe
Maybe you'll be the next Yoderp. All right, so the the next one is...
I wish I had 99 subscribers.
Dude, I know, right? But he doesn't have any listens on Spotify. All right, so the next one is Ixion. Now, Ixion in Greek legend was the son of either Ares or Philyggus, king of Lapiths in Thessaly. I don't know who that is. But the point is, he murdered his father-in-law and could find no one to purify or accept him until Zeus did so and admitted him as a guest to Olympus. There, Ixion kind of overstepped his bounds by trying to seduce Hera, Zeus's wife. Then Zeus substituted her for a cloud, which is pretty weird, and I don't know how, but that meant that the cloud gave birth to centaurs. But the point is that after this, I know, Zeus casts Ixion out and puts him on a flaming wheel, kind of like the sun that would circle the globe and then circle tartar sauce. I'm kidding. Like the underworld, essentially. He pretty much cast him down. So I think it's really similar to Frike, honestly, in that he just tried to fly too high. And he overstepped the bounds of what it means to be a person and, tried to sleep with the gods, literally. And as a result, what happened? He gets cast down into the underworld and tortured, essentially. And when you actually come up to Ixion for the boss battle, he's literally strung up in a circle. So it's really, really interesting, And it definitely makes me think of Icarus, with the wings, the way he can fly and just flying too close to the sun. And that's, again, similar to Selene, because her whole problem is her ambition, right? And her neglecting the things that actually matter for flight, literally.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting.
I wonder where Helios's dad comes in.
I don't know.
Because you never ever hear anything about her husband or...
Dude, I don't know. I feel like the fact that she has a kid named Helios is hidden for some reason. So I don't know. Maybe they didn't want to deal with the fact that she'd also have to have a dad. Or maybe the point is that
to serve... Oh, sorry.
I was say maybe the point is that the father's absent, just like Hyperion is absent. Anyway, but what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say maybe something was going on at the... Where were they? What's the space organization called?
Astra.
Maybe she had a kid with one of the people on the board or something, and he couldn't be shown to light or anything, so he had to say you're not allowed. Maybe she was just angry about it.
maybe if Housemarque decided to tell us literally anything about the story, we'd know. but I think that would make sense. That'd be interesting. Maybe we can make a game with a story, and then
maybe we could. I bet we could at least write the story.
I feel like we definitely could. But that's Ixion. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Nemesis. Would you like me to talk about Nemesis?
Please do.
So Nemesis was the ancient Greek goddess of divine retribution. As such, she meted out punishment for evil deeds, undeserved good fortune, and hubris, which is arrogance before the gods or before fate. She was also called Adrasteia, meaning the inescapable, or the goddess of Rhamnus, in recognition of her famous temple in the city of Rhamnus. What I get out of that is that she's there to punish those who fly too high, you know?
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who strikes down those who have hubris and get caught up with their own flight to the top. Which, interestingly enough, the third phase of her boss battle, you're constantly trying to get higher because you're constantly falling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and Nemesis also is often portrayed as like a dark version of oneself, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that it is a manifestation of Selene trying to punish herself, as is the entire world, right? But I think specifically there. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about that one? Because there's a lot of interesting imagery.
No, that was my thought exactly. Just being angry towards yourself, and like you said, Nemesis usually means like a dark version of yourself. So it makes total sense.
But interesting boss, and really interesting quote unquote lore that they stole from an entire civilization. But I like it. The next boss is Hyperion, but we talked about that a bunch.
Yeah, we already.
And the last one is Ophion, who is interestingly probably the figure with like by far the least history and information about him. But his name means serpent, and which if you've played against Ophion, you're like, oh, I get it. He's a serpent.
Yeah.
But he was a king titan who was overthrown by Kronos, you know, like the titan Kronos who represents time. And he was then cast into the depths of the sea. And for the Greeks, the sea was a symbol of the underworld. So it's not just that it's the sea where you find Ophion, but it's also not heaven, right? So he cast out of heaven, cast down from the heights of heaven into the depths of the sea. And he was cast out for his pride and ambition, which is a motif that keeps repeating itself, right? And
yeah.
Interestingly enough, another version of the legend involves him falsely claiming to have created the world on his own, next to his wife. And he actually used his wife to create the world. But then, after it's created, he says to everybody, I did this. And then she kicks his teeth out and casts him into the ocean.
Huh.
But he always ends up in the ocean. I think that's what matters most.
Yeah.
But again, right, a symbol of one who was high and mighty, but then was cast down for their ambition. And
which is just Selene. She was cast out into the ocean, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
As the player and in the story. That's not on Atropos.
Exactly.
So then we go from Ophion to what I presume is Octo.
Yeah, right.
At the end. That is just like the manifestation of like, maybe that's what she remembers most. Maybe she has that as like a memento still from the crash. So that's like what haunts her the most.
Yeah, I think so.
But we go from that first ending, right? Where basically Selene drowns and she starts the cycle again.
Yeah.
But can you explain to me the true ending after you get all the pieces of Helios?
Yeah, I think. So I think that, like we said, Helios is the god of obviously the sun, but also the god of sight and like understanding. And I think that when you put together the pieces of Helios and defeat Ophion, you really do defeat yourself in that you come to terms with what happened and you actually accept it, right? And it's significant that the first time when you're trying to swim to the surface as Selene, the black tentacles don't just wrap around you and pull you down, but they block out the light. Whereas in the second one, the light goes brighter and brighter and brighter until
it shines through the water.
Yeah, until you hear Selene, presumably, break out of the water or gasp and say Helios, right? So I think it symbolizes that she breaks out of the cycle because she sees herself and her situation for who she is and for what it is, and is able to accept it. So that's what I think happens.
Okay. And the alien zombie in the wheelchair. Is that her mom or is that Selene?
I think it's Thea. I think it's her mom, but I think that her mom is a symbol much greater than just being her mom, right? Because I think her mom represents the beginning of the cycle, right? The real cycle in Returnal isn't the one on Atropos, it's the one of motherly neglect, where her mom neglected her for this, and there's a reason that they want to be astronauts instead of like bakers or something, right? An astronaut is somebody who's far away, who's seeking after something greater than themselves and seeking for a power that is like, greater than what they could find on Earth. They're literally leaving their planet to find something better, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that it's the real cycle is the one of motherly neglect, where her mom left her for the expanse of space, and then Selene did the same thing to Helios. And so that's what I think. I don't know what you asked. So I totally forgot.
No, you answered
Thea, the mother.
What I asked. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay.
But
I just wish they would have spent a little more time. Because like after getting that third act, were you able to finish it?
I did. Yeah, I finished it last night.
Man, that last cutscene was really underwhelming.
Nothing has ever been more underwhelming.
Like
in my entire life.
Like I just gotta say, the beginning of this game is so strong. Like everything in the game up until the very last biome, I think, is like perfect. Like
I would say up until the end of Hyperion, it's literally perfect.
Honestly, it's like I couldn't recommend this game enough if it was just that.
I totally agree.
And if they just explained things at the end. I feel like with a roguelike, which for those who don't know is a game where when you die, you go back and you restart, and usually the maps change every time you go through it. But for this game in particular, I wish what they would have done is after you beat the game, after you get that Act 3 final cutscene, they would just explain it to you. And then another great thing would have been if all the audio logs and ciphers were just, you could find them no matter what. You just gotta look for them. Not be randomly generated in rooms that will take you 100 tries to find. Like forget looking for them. You gotta survive the map in order to get them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta survive 3 maps to get to one.
Yep.
Like if you want to go from the overgrown ruins to like the fractured world, it's going to take you a long time. But man, that's just the last few hours of this game were really underwhelming and really disappointing because it was so strong.
I'm really glad you feel that way, because I thought it was just me. Like for example, when I was probably 6 hours into the game, maybe 7 hours, that's probably right after I beat Hyperion, I was talking to Grace about it, and I couldn't sing this game's praises more. I was loving it.
I know.
Like, I was going crazy. I was telling people about it. I was like stopping people on the street to tell them about like our freaking Lord and Savior Returnal, you know? Like I was going crazy for this game. And then just like a switch. Boom. The game's just not good anymore. like
no, it's still a great game.
It's still just fine, but I think it totally
left me in a sour place at the end.
It left me totally cold. I mean, Chris, you should have seen my face when the cutscene played after Refine. I was like, the frick is this? Like, what? What? Like, I wrote down here that the true ending didn't feel like an alternate or add-on ending. It was just straight up the ending. Like, why did I...
Can I say something?
And it wasn't
really
even
quick
actually
about my
the
notes?
ending. But you tell me, man, what?
I have 2 pages of notes, and they end at the beginning of Act 2.
Yep.
There's nothing to say after that. The last thing I have written is easy but weird. Really don't like the RNG. The end.
Yep.
That's all I have written
That's it.
down.
That's the perfect summary. Yeah, it's just like... I think... And especially the story was much more prevalent in the beginning. And it was much more straightforward in the beginning, too. And then
It's more mysterious. In a good way.
Yeah, like... It was mysterious, but in a way that implies you'll get answers, you know?
Right? Right?
Not just in the straight up not saying things. Like, what if I just was talking to you and cut out every third word? Like, oh my gosh. Like, the ending of the game, like the official normal ending, that's not the end. Like, they can't... I felt like it was dumb that they put credits after it. Because it just straight up was not the end.
That was really dumb. And that made it twice as underwhelming and disappointing when you got to the actual ending and you got to go through the credits again.
And twice as painful because you're like,
I know.
Okay, I beat the game, but now I have to just do it again because they didn't feel like giving me the end. Like, I actually liked the experience of going and getting the sun pieces. I didn't mind that.
Oh, me too.
But they should have just, made that the end. Like, what? Oh, that weird fake out ending that didn't make any sense, and then which led to an alternate ending that also didn't make very much sense. I thought it was a really bad decision.
I agree.
And that's why I think that it shouldn't be $70. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like they really missed the landing.
I gotta say, the quality of the game is top notch. The gameplay is top notch. It's very tight.
Superb.
Superb. And I mean, it looks great. It plays great. That's where the instantaneous word comes from. It's so fast.
Oh yeah, you are Celine. You're so connected. I agree.
But man,
it breaks down though.
It breaks down right at the end in the worst way possible.
Right?
I would still say, man, I don't know actually.
Like, I think people should buy it. I just think they should wait a little bit. Just wait till it's like on sale for $40. You know, like
40, even $60.
It's still
50.
It's a great game, and I think people should play it. But man, like people, I love that we're recommending whether people buy this when we explicitly told everyone who hasn't played it to leave. But like, I don't know. I have a hard time just because I have so many problems with the way they executed the last act. You know?
Yeah.
And like, it's not even obvious that you need to do that. You had to Google it, and I had to ask you.
Yeah, exactly. Man.
And I do have a couple other problems, which are much more minor. Can I tell you my biggest one?
Please. I mean, where else do we go from here?
Why? Like, I get why I take fall damage when I jump off of a platform or, like, miss a platform. But it's so much. Like, when you fall off of something into nothingness, it's like...
Oh, into, like, the abyss?
Or anywhere. If you just fall off a platform. Like, not fall damage falling onto a thing you're supposed to fall on, but, like, falling off the map.
Oh, yeah. It is a lot of damage.
It's like, hey, a quarter of your health. Thanks, bud. Goodbye. I hate that. There were so many times where I'd like just get Sylphium, which is what they call the health in this game. I'd like just heal up, and then I would just fall.
You lose it.
I'd be so pissed. Like,
I know.
I think that's the thing that made me the most mad was just falling off a ledge. And if it was the beginning of a run and I accidentally fell off a ledge, I just restarted.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm just going to restart.
I'm with you.
So there were a couple really frustrating things like that. Like, they should have just taken, like, a tiny amount of your health. Like, why are you punishing me so much for this? You know what I mean? It's like, it's Celine's fault that she didn't decide to grapple onto that thing, which I was clearly pointing at and freaking smashing the stupid triangle button and trying to get her to do it. So,
Hey, I have one more question about, like, something that you find in the Fractured World. And you kind of see it in the Overgrown Ruins, too. But that black orb of Ichor, I think it's called. What is that?
Let me look up Ichor. I think that's like is that like the food of the gods?
Because, like, you reach into it, and then it reaches back at you if you find it.
Right? It's an ethereal fluid that is the blood of the gods. In classical myth, that's what it means. So yeah, Greek god's blood. It is said to retain the qualities of the immortals' food and drink, like ambrosia and nectar. It is said to be toxic to humans, killing them instantly if they came in contact with it. Great heroes and demigods occasionally attacked gods and released Ichor, but gods rarely did so to each other. I think it's the idea of, like, her god complex. I think.
That makes sense. And it's like, it'll kill her and stuff.
And yet is completely unexplained.
Nice. Why are people interested in Greek mythology?
Apparently so they can understand Returnal, man. I mean, I couldn't think of another reason. Wild, though.
Can I say, people are complaining about how hard this game is.
No.
The only hard part for me was Frike. Legit, that was the hardest part of the game for me was Frike. Took me 3 tries. And then after that, I killed every boss in 1 try.
Yeah, same. I had problems.
And the mini bosses.
Yeah, no, there's one mini boss that always gave me trouble. Everything else was fine. But
Yeah.
Ixion gave me trouble. I had to fight him 3 times. Frike, I think I fought twice. And Nemesis I fought twice. But that was because I fell off an edge.
Oh.
Anyways, yeah, so every other boss was a one-shot. And I fought most of them twice, just doing stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, dude, I totally agree. I think people are being babies. It's not that hard. Like, I think it's hard if you don't play a lot of video games. But, like, if you review games for a living, you suck. If Returnal's, like, giving you a problem, you know? It's not that bad.
Yeah, and honestly, and you don't have to kill anything. Most of the rooms you can just run through.
Yeah. No, dude, I don't get it.
I wouldn't do that if I were you. If it's like your first time playing and you're just running through the rooms, you should try to kill them because you won't be able to get to the next area that will just immediately buff you up to that biome's level. But yeah, those severed guys that you find in the Fractured World were the hardest thing.
Those guys sucked.
When you have to fight 6 of them.
Yeah, that was bad.
It drove me insane. It was too much until it wasn't. Until I just had the right gear.
Yes. I will say that I feel like it's kind of a problem with this game that some weapons are just objectively so much better than other weapons. I don't know. Like, I get that that's the point. It's like a roguelike. But it really did feel like some parts of the game were just really hard / impossible until you just got the right stuff. Whether it was a gun or like an artifact. And it's like, oh, now it's easy. Now I don't even get hit once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'll throw in one of my fast ones right here, mid-episode, just for you.
You naughty boy. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's me. I want to quickly rank the weapons that you find. Like, tell me, like, what were your favorites?
Yeah.
What's on the bottom for you? Like, let's start from the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
What's the worst thing ever?
The freaking... I hated...
Or useless.
There was one weapon I literally never picked up. The one
Which
that
one?
you find in the abyssal whatever. The water place.
The dread one?
Not the dreadbound. It's in the abyssal scar, I think. And it's
The
right...
lobber?
No, it's not the lobber. It's maybe they're randomized. Maybe they are randomized.
Or the shredder?
I don't know, because I literally never picked it up. But I picked it up once and was like, that's stupid, and then put it back down for my other weapon. But
what did it do?
It was like I don't even know. It was similar to a rocket launcher.
shot?
There's like a million rocket launcher type of deals in this game.
And it wasn't the launcher?
It wasn't the thermogenic launcher. I'm telling you, I literally picked it
I
up
never found
5 seconds and put it down. It was like, I'm not dealing with this.
Huh.
Let me look up a list of them, because I remember most of them.
Yeah.
Like, I remember their names. Like, there's the thermogenic launcher, there's the hollow seeker, the carbine, the shotgun. Those names I don't remember. Yeah, the Spitmaw.
I hate the Spitmaw. The Spitmaw is the most useless weapon.
Dude, the Spitmaw is
does
good
nothing.
if you have the correct attachments. Let me look it up really quick. Weapons list Returnal. Like, if the Spitmaw has narrow maw and slug shot. By the way, narrow maw, obviously, it makes it so that what you shoot out of the gun is, more narrow. It's less shotgunny. And then, along with that, the slug shot puts a single bullet in the middle that does a lot of damage. If I had those two attachments, I liked it, because it would actually kill things. But if it was the wide maw attachment, I didn't even bother. But here, I'm looking up a list of them right now.
Oh, was it the caster?
I think it was the caster, because I don't know what that is.
It's one of the last weapons that you'll find.
Yep, it was the pyro shell caster. No clue what it does, because I never picked it up.
It's like a grenade launcher.
Yeah, right.
The launcher itself is the rocket launcher, and this one's like a grenade launcher, so it has like
an arc, which makes it even worse than it already is. But yeah, I would say that the pyroshell caster and the thermogenic launcher and the coil spine shredder were all tied for easily worst weapon in the game. I hated all of them.
Really?
Despised them.
Okay. What's your top 3 like? You won't even continue the run unless you got one of these 3 weapons. Go.
Easy. It's really only 2, but
okay.
The top one, I'll tell you my number 2, or I'll tell you my number 3. Number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, calm down, Chris. I can't do this. All right. The number 3 is the Rotglend Lobber, which I hated until I loved it. I will say that any weapon that I've said I don't like, I'm sure I just didn't use it right or didn't unlock the right bonuses. Because my favorite weapon was a weapon I hated until I got the right stuff for it, and then I was like, it's the best weapon in the game. Easy. It's easy mode. Okay. But the Rotglend Lobber was my number 3, which was great just because it does damage over time. I loved that. My number 2 was the Tachyomatic Carbine.
Okay.
Specifically with the leech life rounds and the rising pitch, because it would shoot faster and faster, and like every third bullet just gives you health. It was awesome. You can't die when you're using it. Yeah. So that was my second favorite, and my favorite was the Hollow Seeker.
Oh my gosh, you make me sick.
Look. When you level it up,
you make me sick.
Listen to this. You level it up, and you get the Portal Beam level 2 and the Portal Turret level 2, and the serrated whatevers and the waves. Easy mode. Literally just like portals start spawning everywhere and just shooting whatever you're shooting at. It's amazing. Easily the best weapon in the game.
Okay. Before I give you my list really quick, can I just tell you how wrong Kotaku's list is?
What's Kotaku's? I'm excited.
Okay. So the last one on the list is the Lobber.
No, it's not that bad.
And they do like these little jokes where it's like, if you have nothing equipped, it's number 11. If you just run with your hands tied, it's number 12. And then the 14th one is the Lobber.
Dang.
So they just suck at the game. And then the launcher's number 10. The caster's number 9. Dreadbound, Shredder, Sidearm. The driver is 5. Blaster, like the Spitmaw's number 4. Hollow Seeker number 3. Carbine 2. And then the launcher is number 1.
Ugh, the launcher? It's the worst weapon in the game, easily.
Okay. Let me give you the real list.
The real list?
Good stuff. This is the definitive list of a pro player.
Oh, okay. I'm excited.
So the worst one is obviously the Spitmaw.
It's not
Don't
that
ever
bad.
use the Spitmaw.
The Spitmaw's pretty good.
It does no damage. If you are more than 2 feet away from an enemy, you will not hit them. It's the worst.
It is often not the best weapon. I agree.
And then like the caster is pretty bad, and so is the shredder. Those guns are just not very good.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the sidearm I think is like a good middle ground because you can find like fully auto sidearms.
Yeah, they're not too bad. Unless they have the burst and the charge, in which case just, to restart because it's the worst thing in the world.
And then right above that is the Hollow Seeker for me.
It's so good, baby.
And then the Carbine. And then the 3 for me has to be the launcher, the lobber, and then the driver is number 1. The driver is just the best.
For all who are not here with us right now, just know I'm rolling my eyes so hard that they're coming out of my face.
The driver is S tier. It's God tier. Like, oh my gosh, I beat the entire game with the driver. As soon as I had a good driver, I was done. And I wouldn't pick up another gun, like, even if it was 10 levels higher than my driver, until I found a better driver.
I understand.
The driver's just the best. It's just the best.
I will say this. I liked the driver when I found it, but I think I literally only found the driver 3 times in my entire playthrough.
That's insane.
And I didn't find the driver until... So you told me about it when I was like 7 hours into my game. I hadn't found it once. I didn't find it for another 3 hours.
I found it in the first biome.
Yeah, dude. They must be randomized to some extent because I straight up didn't find it for at least the first 12 hours of my game.
That's crazy. I'm sorry.
All I could ever find was the freaking stupid coil spine shredder. I hate that weapon.
Yeah, that weapon sucks.
It's bad.
It really does.
But the real
there are
weapon,
some carbines that are just awful.
Yeah, some of them are bad, man. Like, that's
like
the other
those
thing.
with 5 bullets.
I hated that, dude. Like, you have to get really lucky. It's like, not only do you have to be dropped one of 3, of the actual good weapons, of like the 8 or 9 that there are in the game, but then you also have to get the good, I don't know, attachments almost, right?
Yeah.
You have to get the good attachments, and then beyond that, you also have to get the good stats for your weapon. It's like, I feel like they need to remove one variable in the RNG. I ended up finding weapons I liked though. It's not a huge deal, but
yeah. And then we can't forget the Tropium Blade.
Oh baby,
That thing just
that's the best weapon in the game.
Yeah.
I used, especially in the first biome, I literally only used the Atropium Blade. Like, I would just use it on everything. It 1-shots almost every creature. And 3-shots half the bosses.
Are you, are you fiddling with something?
I'll stop. I can't help
Thank
it.
you.
I'm so sorry. I'll fiddle with this instead. It makes a lot less noise.
Good. Sorry.
Lo siento, amigo.
But yeah, Tropium Blade's awesome.
I agree.
But where do we go from here, Josh?
I feel like we gotta talk about the alt fires really quick. And
Okay,
with that,
yeah.
we should talk about the DualSense controller. Just before we get into it.
Before we get into like the fighting the bosses and stuff.
Yeah, before we talk about the alt fires or the bosses, we can talk about, because I feel like, we'll probably have a couple more things to talk about. Talk about DualSense, talk about the alt fires, talk about the bosses, and then probably go into our fast ones. What do you think?
I
love
agree.
it. Sweet. So tell me, what was your experience with the DualSense?
Mind melting.
Ooh. I agree.
That's all I gotta say. I played the entire game with the 3D Pulse headphones as well. I did not want to hear or play this game on my stereo or whatever. I just felt like having the headphones with the controller was just a complete experience. And it's crazy what Housemarque was able to do. Like, there was Astrobot, the game that comes with the console, was a fantastic little demo for the DualSense. But playing Housemarque's new game, it really showed like what you're capable of doing with this thing. It's amazing. Like, having the rain droplets at your fingertips, and like if you set your controller on the table, you'll hear rain. It's insane.
I know.
How did they do it? And then like having the triggers, doing the half pull and full pull on the left trigger for the alternate fires and stuff was really cool. I thought I wouldn't be able to get used to that because I think the first time we ever heard of something like that was with Ratchet and Clank being revealed. But it was just natural. It was perfect.
It's crazy how natural it feels just after playing for like an hour.
And then one more thing I gotta say. After I beat the game, I was tired of using the headphones for a bit. And I just wanted to hear how the game was. But I wasn't listening to the game. I was listening to the controller whirring around and making all these noises for all the different alt fires. And I was like, I've been missing out on this the whole time.
I know.
Like, I could have been listening to the controller function. And that was just like another experience. Like, I would put the controller up to my ear and just listen to all the little things that it was doing to make it sound like rain was falling, or I was charging up like a black hole in my gun. Like, I could hear it. It was insane.
Dude, I so agree. I'm glad you
I think
feel
it's called
that
like
way.
the void beam, but yeah, it was pretty incredible. What about you, man?
Yeah, I'm just there with you the entire time. I mean, it's a triumph. Like, the integration of 3D audio and the haptic feedback in the DualSense, it is a triumph. Nothing like it has ever been done. It is incredible. And, I mean, for that alone, you really should play this game. It's amazing. And it's one of those things where you might not notice it when you're playing, right? Like, it might just form the experience, so you're just really, really in the game. But when you go back and use a different controller, you notice. Like, it's totally different. But one thing that blew my mind, I never thought it would be possible. Not that I was thinking about this all the time. But when you fall down the shaft into the abyssal scar, which is in water, everything else in this game is above land, right? But this is going and falling down into the water. You can feel the water rushing past you on your controller.
I know.
And that sounds like a lie, and it sounds like a marketing crap, but I swear, it's amazing. Like, you can feel the water rushing past you in your head. I don't know how to describe it, isn't it? But like, you felt that way too, right?
Oh, for sure. And like, mentally, things felt heavier in the controller.
Yes. It's like a rushing, so like swishing motion in the controller. Like,
I gotta say, this game probably has the best underwater level.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't ruin the game being underwater.
Yes.
It's
actually pretty good.
It's actually quite easier, actually.
Yeah, I would say it's a really easy level, which I thought was very odd. Do you want to go through briefly each biome, then culminating just with the boss, essentially?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
I love it. All right, so that means we're going to start with the overgrown ruins, correct?
Yep.
All right, tell me about your experience with the overgrown ruins, the aesthetic, the beasts hidden within, and then the boss, the end.
Teguses.
The T-guy, as I called him.
The T-guy. It was very dark, very dingy, and it had this really cool flora or just plants in the game where it would light up blue when you got close to it, and like it would follow you. Yeah, I thought that was pretty memorable. But I thought it was a very good, unexciting first biome.
I agree.
Like, it didn't give you too much to play with, but it was just enough to get you to that first boss. Like, because let's be real, it's pretty generic looking.
Oh yeah.
Very much Prometheus-esque.
Yeah, I would say so.
But it worked really well, I thought.
I agree.
But how do you feel about the overgrown ruins?
You know, I thought it was good. I really like the architecture of the sentience. I think it's really cool. But, you know, yeah, I agree. It's pretty standard, you know. I think the fauna is really cool, like you said, the flora, the fauna. But I think that Frike is the first time that the game really shows its true colors in a way, right? where you
Yeah.
see, oh my gosh, this is what it can be, and it really opens up for me with that boss fight. But what do
That's
you feel about
literally
Frank?
where that's literally where you see the colors for the first time.
This is true, other than green.
Yeah, she would throw these like purple orbs at you and these red lasers, and it was pretty impressive stuff.
It's
And it
gorgeous.
was definitely the best combat up until that point. I thought Frike, like I said, was the hardest one for me. I don't know if that was when you're starting out in the game, you don't have the best equipment, or maybe just not having the right guns available at the time was a problem. I always thought it was weird that each boss would give you the pistol
I know.
at the beginning. I always thought that was weird. Was that like maybe it was trying to say like if you use the pistol it'd be easier? I thought that was going to be like a thing throughout the game where it's like use this type of weapon for this boss and it'll be easier or something. But that wasn't the case. It was always a pistol.
I know. I thought that too.
But yeah, Frike was challenging, and then she wasn't.
Yep. It's I agree. I think that the reason she was hard is because we sucked. But like,
Yeah.
going back to fight her now, like it's like easy peasy lemon squeezy, baby. Like not a problem. I think that's one of the things that's most rewarding about this game is that even though your weapons do get better, I think that the only thing that really improves is you. You just become better at the game by playing it, and I think that's really rewarding.
For sure.
Like you can't just level up to beat a boss. You just have to be better. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool part of this game. But yeah, Frike was kind of cool.
I also thought the enemies up until this point were pretty standard looking.
Yeah, I would say
Like
so.
I really didn't like the beasts that you find. I definitely like, spoiler alert for later on, but I love the automatons a lot more, and I love the sentients themselves a lot more.
They're cool. Yeah.
They're very cool. And I like the enemies in the next area a lot too.
The
I don't know what to call them.
I don't even know, like glyph
The
monsters.
sand
like,
squids.
yeah, the sand squids. I love it. Yeah. Now let's talk about the Crimson Wastes. I don't know. I'll save my opinion on these areas, by the way, for a fast one if you've got one. But Crimson Waste is cool. I really like the Crimson Waste, and I like the enemies in this world. I think it's a little easier.
Yeah.
I found them to be very easy. There's big Teguses, T-guy, and I like them, the big lizard boys. And I like the giant squid lizards. I'm not squid lizards. The giant sand squids. I thought they're really cool. I mean, it's like a hammer that just has squids coming out of the bottom of it.
Yeah, they're almost like a hammerhead shark with tentacles that shoot lasers at you.
Yes. And I had like a little trouble with those for a tiny bit. Like I think I was killed by one once or twice. Other than that, oh man, it's just fun fighting them. I love the area before the mountain. So good.
I agree. I love the exploration in this world a lot more so than in any of the other ones.
Me too.
Just because it didn't tell you, you would just see something out in the distance and you could go there.
They pulled a Druckmann on us.
They pulled a Druckmann.
They last us.
So I thought that was really cool. But sadly, this roguelike is very predictable. Maybe this is how all roguelikes are. But you could always count on certain rooms and things being there.
Yeah.
And I could always count on something being on either side of this world. That's the only complaint I have about the randomness. Or I have lots of complaints about how random the game can be. But for the world itself, that's my only complaint. Other than that, I thought there were different rooms, and it was always fun finding something new, or finding a new enemy or a gun, or finding a new piece of equipment or artifact. I always thought that was a little shot of dopamine to the brain, you know?
Oh yeah, give it.
But yeah, once you get to the mountain, it's all right.
Yeah, it kind of takes a quality hit, you know? It's not as enchanting as I think that it was at the beginning. I wish they'd stayed with the really open environment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to describe it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I kind of do. Like, there's that. It's not
Because it's not
there's the
actually
first half
open.
of this world.
Like, it's not
Yeah, it's
actually
not.
open, right? But it feels open.
Yeah, that middle part of this biome takes a really hard hit with how not closed in it is, but
Generic.
it's just like you're in a concrete building.
Yeah.
It's like a map from Halo.
It is like a map from Halo.
But then when you get to the top of the mountain, up until Ixion, I think that's pretty cool.
I
It kind
agree.
of introduces that openness again, and once you get the grappling hook, it changes everything.
Dude, the grappling hook, it changes, like, I'm just going to repeat you, it changes everything.
It does.
It makes it so good. Like, the
The
grapple hook is
alien
perfect.
artifacts, yeah, the alien equipment that you find in the game is awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the
I
trophy
wonder where that
blade.
comes in with the story, getting these tools that let you explore Atropos.
I don't know. Slowly exploring yourself, I have no clue.
Oh, wow. There
Wow.
you go. You just answered my question. Podcast is over.
Goodbye.
But what do you think of fighting Ixion? Because you said you died to him a couple times.
Ixion was easily the hardest boss for me. And I don't know why. I just had a really hard time with him, Like I said, every boss after him, easy, just beat him immediately, Like, I'm a gamer, okay? Back off. It's easy for me. I am FaZe Clan. But just like, I don't know, Ixion and I did not get along. I think that it was specifically the sequences when you have to jump over his walls that you can barely see. And like dodge other
The
stuff
blue
too.
ones?
Yeah, I had a hard time seeing them, and I'm bad at games, and
You have a pretty bad eyesight, I guess.
I am almost blind.
Or maybe it's your TV because like you couldn't see the shadows in the pathless, which were
are-
very like those are shadows that you can hide under.
Couldn't see him.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I had a problem with him, but I think he's a cool boss, and I definitely like him. So I kind of wish they would give you the grapple hook right before the boss, and then they'd incorporate it into fighting the boss.
Like put it in the middle of the arena so you could like jump over and stuff. That would have been pretty cool.
Like, I think that would have been a cool thing, but I get why they didn't, because then, you'd have the grapple hook, which
I don't think the grapple hook works good in combat until the Abyssal Scar.
really,
I don't think it's very good until that point.
it's literally the most useful tool in your arsenal, Christopher.
I'm-
It is the teamwork of Returnal. Because I think you're invulnerable when you're using it,
You are, yeah.
because you can just go through whatever projectile. So I would just use it the second anything shot at me. Bow, 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 bow. And you can cancel out of it, I think. No, you can't. You cannot cancel out.
No. Yes, you can. You can let go.
I never played this game, so I don't know.
I loved Ixion's bullet patterns and stuff. Some of the patterns in this game are so good looking, I almost get hit by them.
Because I
just
want to
look
be.
at them.
Yeah, I want to be in the middle of it so I can see it.
But yeah. And I love the phases of the bosses preceding Frike. Because Frike doesn't really change very much. She just
Yeah.
starts hitting you. Like, she'll come up close for a melee.
Yeah.
Or
Or shoot
something
out
like
a
that.
couple more orbs. It's not a huge change.
Exactly. But with with Ixion, sorry, he'll start flying around and like he'll fly up into the cosmos and then crash back down on you.
I'll send a
It
letter
was-
to your mom. He goes crazy, man. I agree.
Ixion was very cool though.
He's a cool boss. And I love the setup. He's hanging there. It's very cool. Ixion's cool. But I was grateful to be done. Because, especially, I think that biome feels by far the longest. Or at least to me, it felt just so long.
It takes, it's definitely a long one. It just keeps going on and on and on.
It needed to be a little bit shorter, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But then you get the grapple hook right after the boss, and then you're able to go to the Derelict Citadel.
The Citadel.
which has my favorite enemies in the game, besides one. Favorite design. There we go. It has my favorite design of enemies.
Is it the ones that crawl after you or what?
No, I just love these robots for some reason. They remind me of, they shouldn't, but they remind me of the cover of that album from Finger Tight.
What are you talking about?
I don't know, but they remind me of like that album from my childhood. And I don't know. They're just maybe they remind me of the Iron Giant. You know, I love that movie. You know, so just like looking at them, like I am killing them. Half of them are cut in half and are crawling at you dead, but there's something cute about them.
I hate them. I will gladly bury them in the backyard.
I love the giant ones, like the really tall ones.
Oh, like the
those
big,
are
the big
hard.
Iron Giant looking dudes with
Yeah.
the
Those guys are hard,
I like those guys too.
but they're fun. But I think we can agree that the worst ones are the flying ones that shoot rockets at you. Those made me want to die.
Dude,
Like,
pure
put a
anger.
gun in my mouth and pull the trigger.
Just to make it end. I hate them. It took me until I was literally 28 hours into the game, Chris, for me to be able to consistently be able to dodge their rockets. I
still can't.
I don't know what it was about it. And I kid you not, if you eat one of their rocket barrages, it's like half your health. You're just done.
You're done. You're done.
It's just not restart, I guess. You
and
lose.
then when they come back for their fractured world, when there's 30 of them in every room,
and it just ends.
and then they learn to dive bomb into you.
Yes. If you take out half their health, they're like, I'll just kill you with my
kill
body.
you. You're done. You're dead.
Oh my gosh, you're so right, dude. I mean, my whole perception of this biome was completely pooped upon by these robots.
Yeah.
I hate this biome because of those flying robots. And I liked some moments in it. I actually really enjoyed it. But before I learned how to deal with them, I hated this place.
I gotta say, this might be the most forgettable biome
That's
in
pretty
design.
standard, you know?
It's cool up until a certain point. When you're grapple hooking from each tower or whatever. That's kind of neat. And I love, oh my gosh, the portals in this biome are. You hear that? It's like that.
The terrifying
You just go
portals.
through it. No, the ones that open up and you just go to a new area.
Yeah, and you're okay, so look. They open when you're in proximity to them, but it doesn't matter if you're in the same room as them. And it doesn't matter if they're on the other side of a wall. So there were so many times where I'd have my headphones on and this game has the 3D audio and everything's quiet. And then out of nowhere, shield your ears if you have sensitive ears. It'd be like which is the sound the stupid door makes when it opens.
Oh, geez, what just happened?
Oh my gosh, where are we?
I think our internet just died.
Oh no, I thought it was me that died.
No, but it's fine.
Returned.
We have returned.
I'm proud of us.
Me too.
It only took us a day to overcome our internet failing.
But where were we? We were talking about portals and how they make you poop your pants.
And they still do, yeah. They're terrifying. They're the scariest part of this game, man. I take the house sequences over that every day.
Oh my gosh. You're a madman. You're a psychopath.
I'm a madman.
Honestly, if I knew you when I was a kid and you would just walk into dark hallways in my house, I would have thought you were Hercules or something.
Well,
Some
I
demigod.
am Hercules. Big old plot twist. I'm at least half god. I want to tell you though about memories of when I was a kid.
Yeah, go ahead.
In regards to dark hallways. So,
Please.
I don't know if your siblings did this to you, but I have really distinct memories of us watching a scary movie or a movie that was scary to me as a kid. You know,
Sure.
which could have been anything from Alien versus Predator to whatever. You know, it could have been anything. I was scared of everything as a kid.
Okay.
But I remember, no, it was The Mummy. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, the more recent ones, but not like the one with Tom Cruise. The real, like, more normal mummies.
Yes.
Nathan Fillion, I think? No, it's the other guy that looks like
the other
Nathan
guy
Fillion.
that looks like Nathan Fillion.
Thank you. I'm glad you feel the same way.
He's like Nathan
Anyways,
Fillion
it's
with
that
a lazy eye.
Yes, it is like that. but we were watching that movie with lazy eye Nathan Fillion, and you know the part where the beetles, like the scarabs, go under their skin. You can see them moving around, and they like come out of the eyeball.
For sure.
Horrified me as a child. Anyway, beyond that scarring experience, we were watching this movie. And it was, you know, the rest of the house was dark because we were watching a movie. And I remember I had to go to the bathroom or something. So I was going to the bathroom, blah, blah. I'm coming back. And my sister jumps out of the shadows and, like, screams at me and, like, grabs me. And I think I was, like, 6 or 7 at the time, maybe 8. I remember just crying. And, like, immediately breaking down and, like, sobbing and being in, like, the most emotional pain I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Oh, jeez.
So that's what anyways, because of that, I became deathly afraid of like dark hallways.
I had some similar experiences having, you know, like 4 older brothers and 2 older sisters.
Yeah. It's like if you have any siblings.
Most of my fear of like the dark was just in my head and like the positions I put myself in. I just like I know for a fact I'm claustrophobic because of my siblings.
Dang.
Like we didn't like we had blankets, but for some reason we decided to sleep in sleeping bags in the house.
Dude, I did the same. I don't know what the deal is with kids. I did the same
It's
thing.
the stupidest thing ever. Like it's so hot. I hate sleeping bags, but besides
It's a
the
life hack, Chris. There's no sheets. You're skipping so many steps.
right? What they would do is put the sleeping bag over my head, so I'm going into the sleeping bag upside down, you know,
Yeah.
or reverse
Yeah.
way, and they would hold me down. I thought I was going
That's
to
amazing.
die.
You almost did.
I
Maybe
almost
you did, and you just returned to the moment before, and you don't even remember.
Hey. But
Can I tell you about a sleeping bag experience really quickly?
I hope this is not going to a certain place.
Sure. Don't worry, it's not. All right. Let me tell you. So, I went on lots of campouts as a kid, just because when I was young, like 12, 11, 10, my scout troop or whatever was really active. So we would end up going camping all the time. Sure. Whoever was in charge was just like really on top of it, you know? And when you go camping, you sleep in sleeping bags, obviously.
This is going in all the wrong places, Josh.
Don't worry. One day at scout camp. No, don't worry, it's not weird. So, I mean, it is weird, but not in that way. So you know how you like play games on the trampoline where like someone's like rolling around and you're like jumping over them, and it's incredibly dangerous because you could just jump on someone's face, but it never happens.
Yeah.
So there was one game we had called Rolling Logs because we weren't very creative, and someone would get in a sleeping bag, pull it over their heads, and try to trip the other people. And then if they fell, they had to get in a sleeping bag and be a rolling log. And everyone would just like roll around at each other. But the best game we had was called Attack of the Worm, where someone was in the sleeping bag, like upside down, and like jumping around, trying to hit each other. And we try to knock each other over, but you can't see. So you're just going next to like, you know, by ear. And I remember launching myself through the air at a random sound, like knocking like the tent over and stuff.
Gosh.
It was fun.
It sounds like
Attack of the Worm.
Attack of the Worm. We had Crack the Egg.
Oh, yep.
I think that's the only one that was named. The rest of them were just jumping around like a bunch of idiots.
Yes.
Stupid kids.
Idiots.
But
Returnal.
yeah, Returnal.
Sorry.
Let's see. I guess let's just jump into the boss. Where you get to the top of the summit, kind of the citadel, and you come upon an alien who's like dead, right? That alien's dead in the throne,
And he's like
but
connected to
somehow it like takes you to another dimension.
yeah, I don't know what happened because it's really weird. He's like got a bunch of tubes in him connecting him to the chair, and there's like a machine you put your face in, and I mean it's all in your head, so I
Yeah,
guess it doesn't
it doesn't
matter
matter.
how it works. but, but it is very interesting.
Yes.
And he takes you into a, like you said, like a total other dimension, and you fight him on a freaking astral plane.
Yeah, it's by far like the best. At least from like I don't want to get into fast ones here, but this boss fight is so epic and just crazy. And you know, it's just like the finale of a good anime.
Yeah, it is. Dude, it's great. I agree. I love this boss fight. I think the only thing it was missing was some dope music. I don't think I even remember the music from this part.
No, I don't remember specifically what it sounded like. But I remember the music being pretty good. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure it was fine.
Before we move on here, I just gotta say, like, the music in this game, and we'll get into it for the fourth biome, but it really makes this game. You know,
Yeah.
like without the music and just the score itself, it wouldn't be as a memorable experience as it is, you know?
Yeah. No, I think I think you're right, but in like an interesting way. Because there's games where the music really makes the game and you can remember every song. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we were just talking about Hybraxia, where like I remember like, you know, several songs.
Yes.
Maybe I don't know their names, but I remember them, like their melody really specifically. I don't know, or even like Final Fantasy 15, I remember a lot of the music from it, just listening to it. But with
Yeah.
this game, I think that it really does add like a ton to the ambiance and to how it feels to play the game. But besides the one song with Hyperion, I couldn't tell you what any of them sound like. But they're perfect for building the atmosphere.
They're perfect for the background. I mean, no, they don't stand out, but they complement the game so well that it's just like it does kind of drown the background. But I think if it wasn't there, it would be pretty catastrophic to the experience.
I agree. You know, they're great. I agree with you, man.
And before I forget, the composer is I hope I'm saying it right. It's Bobby Krlic, Krlic.
Skrillex's cousin.
Yes. And he actually composed the music for the Ari Aster film Midsummer.
Oh,
It's kind of
no
interesting,
wonder it's so disturbing.
right?
No wonder I felt dread the entire time I played the game.
So I thought it was kind of neat. Like he does his own music under another pseudonym, but it's kind of cool. It's like he goes from Midsummer to Returnal, and it's kind of nice that they got like a movie composer almost.
Yeah, one of
He's
these,
almost a
one
movie
of these
composer. He's only done
baby
one movie.
video game composers.
Yeah, whatever.
One of these freaking losers.
They should get Skrillex to do the score for their next game.
I mean, if they're real men, they will.
Yeah. Yeah, Nemesis is one of the best bosses, and honestly, the stage that this boss takes place in, and all three stages are so awesome and grand in scale. I think this might have it could be the best boss fight I've ever played.
Wow, really?
I think so. Like, it may
That's
not be
an interesting statement, man.
may not be the hardest, but just the presentation of it, it's
Wow.
up there. I mean,
Because you're
other
going up against like
awesome
Hela
boss
from
fights.
Hellblade. You're going up against all of the bosses from the Pathless. You're going against every boss in Dark Souls, every boss in Demon Souls. It's hard. It's a hard thing, but it might be
it's
true.
just, I think presentation alone, like, it's not the hardest. It's not hard at all, you know? It doesn't challenge me. I honestly didn't think you could die on this boss fight. Like, I thought it gave you so many chances to grapple if you fell that really there was no way that you could possibly die.
If the grapple hook would work, maybe that would be true.
But I think just the presentation alone, I mean, this boss fight is so epic. I mean, it's
Can I tell you my
fantastic.
favorite boss fight?
Ever?
Yeah, ever.
Is it Boulder from Brasia 2?
It is. No, it's not Boulder. No, but it's for the same exact reason, which is why I thought of it. But it's Hela and Hellblade. When you're approaching her that last time, and just the music is swelling, and you know, Senna was saying all that stuff that makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've never felt that strongly during a video game during that last sequence of Hellblade. So, but for the exact same reason. I mean, the color palette's even really similar, you know, and the process is even really similar. That you're approaching a goal that like you can't really achieve, you know. So, interesting how they're similar.
Yeah.
But anyway, this isn't about Hellblade.
No, it's not. Stop talking about Hellblade. I'm
Get
sick
out
of
of
it.
here. I'm sick of it.
Oh.
Let's talk about Celine and her
Celine
boss
Dion.
fight. Celine Dion. That's right. My heart will go on. And freaking the next place. What is it? The Echoing Ruins?
Yeah, so...
Which occurs after the best plot point in the entire game?
Yes, honestly, like, before we move on, I mean, that Act 2 cutscene, or end of Act 1 cutscene, is so awesome and so profound in the message it's trying to send, and just as a narrative piece is so powerful, right?
I
Like,
totally agree.
she sends out the white shadow signal, and she gets rescued. She goes back to Earth, and she lives a fruitful and prosperous life, you'd assume. And then she dies, I think, at the age of 63, which isn't very long. You know, you probably have to imagine she's in her mid to late 30s. But I think I was, not to be I don't know. I was listening to one of our old podcasts earlier.
Oh.
You know, trying to bump up those views. But no, I was listening to The Pathless. Just to like go over it again, because I forgot what we talked about, and
No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I listened to it last night too.
And we made a point where, or I think you might have made this point, where The Pathless is great because it doesn't tell you anything until it does. And this game is the exact opposite, where it's great because of the things it's giving you until it just stops giving you that information.
Yep.
I was like, oh my gosh, it's just the opposite.
It is. It's kind of interesting.
Like, the story, like, guys, $70 just to see the beginning of Act 2 and the boss right after the Echoing Ruins, totally worth it. Pay 70, pay 140 if you want that digital edition. But it really sucks when you get to that ending and you get to the end of Act 2 and you get like a kind of a punch in the gut of a cutscene and a credit scene. And then when you get to the end, when you do Act 3, it's like a punch in the nuts. Like, it sucks. Yep. Like, everything
put in another 12 hours of game.
Exactly. It's like everything you've done is over. And for nothing.
And it was worthless.
But I don't want to get too far ahead. It was just a point I wanted to make. That this is the opposite of the Pathless. In lots of ways. There's no Troy Baker, which is good. In some ways.
No Laura
Bailey. Maybe.
But no eagle petting.
No eagle petting.
Big downside.
I don't want to talk anymore.
Chris looks crushed.
By the way, I still can't see you.
I can't see you either. Okay. You stopped moving like 10 minutes ago. But no, I agree. I think that this story point was just really touching. Like, I remember the moment I realized, like, what happened, you know, when I'm waking up as Celine. I'm like, oh, no way. It did not, you know? Yeah. It was very effective. So, and then they were just like, hey, let's not do that again. Let's not have a good story beat.
Honestly. But we go from there, and we get to the overgrown, or no, sorry, my bad. The Echoing Ruins, which has a haunting melody from Celine's past playing in the background the entire time. And it's not just the Celine that you are that's sick of it. It's every audio log that you find is her just being like, get this song out of my head. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Celine, you know, offed herself just because of the music.
I agree.
But I mean,
it would have been.
Oh, sorry.
This is kind of morbid, but it would have been interesting if whenever you clicked the restart cycle button, it showed a cutscene of her killing herself. Like, it would have been, like, obviously a little morbid, but I think that would have been interesting, and I'm sure that's how it happened.
I think so too.
Like, how else is she gonna kill herself?
I was always hoping, like, when you died, you would find your body.
Me too.
You know?
And I really wanted to find your body, but I don't think I ever did.
Did you ever play the game during an update where you saw other people's bodies?
No, I heard about it, but I never saw it. No.
So what it would be is, like, you would find another player's, not audio log, but kind of like in a Dark Souls way, where you would see them die as a hologram, and you could avenge them to get ether.
Ooh.
So it was kind of
cool. That's a really cool mechanic.
It went away immediately. It was gone.
It was probably in the update that broke the saves.
It was.
Lame.
But let's see. The Echoing Ruins has the elephant guys.
Robots and elephants.
Robots and elephants.
It's the worst.
And it's pretty underwhelming. But I don't know. Should we just jump into the boss, or do you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah.
It's just a reskin.
The thing is, all the enemies it's a reskin, and all the enemies in it have more interesting appearances in the Fractured Waste and in the Abyssal Scar. So, yeah, let's just head to the Hyperion. Hyperion's the good part anyway.
Before I let you talk about Hyperion, because I love hearing you talk about Hyperion. The best part of the Hyperion boss fight for me was climbing the spire to get to him. Because, like, as soon as you enter that boss room, you know, you hear the organ playing a little bit. It's very faint. But as you get higher and higher, the music just starts swelling and overwhelming you. And the 3D Pulse headphones were just killing it. Like, it shook my body how good it was. And how, like, it was intoxicating. It was awesome. But talk to me about Hyperion.
I would love to. And you're right. Like, it's one of those things where I don't know how they did it. It just feels so, like, you can just feel the music inside your body. It's so loud. Like, you can hardly hear Celine.
It's like the scene in Interstellar.
Oh yes, I know exactly what you're talking
The
about.
Saturn scene where they go into the black hole.
Hmm.
It's so good. Or the wormhole.
Yeah, and the music is just like, like super
It's
loud,
so
to the
loud.
point where you
Dude,
can't
I
hear
saw
anything.
I saw that movie in theaters, like in XD. That movie was loud.
I heard it would like shake the chair and stuff.
Like, I thought it was an earthquake. But
I want to have Interstellar come back to theaters just so I can go watch it in
Experience it.
XD for $30.
honestly, it's any Nolan film.
I know. I've watched Tenet in theaters and unintelligible. So, but anyway, Hyperion.
Yeah.
I think the music makes this boss fight. Like, I think it's a good boss fight, and it's kind of like the moment that you realize, oh my gosh, I'm good at this game. You know, like you begin to seamlessly jump over that pulse, dodge left, jump over that one, dodge through another one, shoot, you know? And I think that the game just perfectly comes into its own in this boss fight.
I agree.
And I just love the narrative significance, right? That we talked about with Hyperion being your dad and his back being turned to you. It's almost like he's just trying to defend himself so he can keep playing, you know?
Yeah, he doesn't want to...
It's almost somber.
He almost doesn't want to, like, think about it, you know?
Yes. Like he just wants to be lost in it and drown out everything else.
I like that.
It's really,
That's a good point.
really interesting. It's a great boss fight. I think it's... Well, I'm not supposed to say. I don't want to infringe on the fast ones. But yeah, I guess that's all I really had to say about Hyperion. Just that I love him. I think it's a great boss fight.
It is. It is a great boss fight.
And he's followed by the greatest area and easiest area ever. The fractured butthole. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. No. The fractured waist. Hell.
Otherwise known as hell. Yeah.
Frozen Hell, it's just a reskin of the Crimson Waste, and it's just a worse version. I
Yeah,
think
in every way.
the only redeeming quality of it, I think, is how easy the turrets are, and
Yes.
and how it's kind of cool. It's like you start in a center hub where everything is in there.
Yeah.
You got the thing that will revive you. You got the shop. You got the thing to put the data cubes in.
Yes.
You got the boss room immediately, and you got the portal to the next biome. So it's all there for you. So on paper, this should be a piece of cake, but it's not.
It should, but it's not.
And this, honestly, this is the precursor for the main problem of the ending of this game. And honestly, the main problem of this game in general. It requires you to get 4 keys to proceed. If you want to fight the boss, you need to get 4 keys going through 4 different doors that lead you to, you know, a myriad of enemies and stuff like that. But there's 2 of
There's
them
like different challenges
that are awful. And if you find one, let's say you get 3 of them, and then you want to go get the last one, which is in the containment room, and then you die because you have to fight 6 blue severed who will just destroy you. They'll obliterate you. And this is after like a few waves of kamikaze robot drones and Teguses or Tegai,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And then you return, you go back to the echoing ruins, and you have to get all 4 of the keys again.
Mm-hmm.
So a problem I had with the fractured waste is choosing, like, do I spend all this time to prepare to have a better shot of beating all of these severed, or do I go face the severed first because I know that's the only place I'm really gonna die at.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No, I agree. I think it was a really interesting decision on their part.
Mm-hmm.
And my problem isn't that you have to get the 4 keys without dying.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is that they decided to put the 4 keys without dying thing in the hardest part of the game,
Yes.
you know? Because they could have just done the 4 keys without dying in like a more balanced area. But the Fractured Waste is easily, by far, the hardest area. It's a giant difficulty spike.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything else is pretty... I mean, there's a couple hard parts in the game, but it's not that bad. But then this area is like killer. Especially those severed, the blue ones.
Which, they remind me a lot of the Marauders from Doom Eternal. I don't know if I've said that already. I might have.
You haven't, no.
Okay, good. Where they're the developer's way of making the game extra challenging, but it just becomes tedious. Like, okay, forget every other enemy. I have to now focus on this idiot or these 6 idiots before I can move on and have fun with the game. Like,
it's harder than any boss.
honestly, they take the fun out of it. Like, it's not fun. Like, I sweat, my butt clenches, I start grinding my teeth whenever I have to deal with these severed guys. You know?
No, I'm with you, man. Like, I would literally, like, physically dread having to go and fight any severed. Especially the blue ones. Like, oh my gosh. And I remember when I beat them, I had a sliver of health.
Yep.
And I was breathing hard like I'd run. like, I was like, did I do it? Did it happen?
Honestly, like, I was just half expecting that after I killed the last one, that it was just going to spawn in, like, a mini boss or 2.
I know, right? We're just going to spawn in another severed.
Honestly.
With a million rocket troopers.
But yeah, Fractured Waste is just a waste. Also because it doesn't have a boss.
I know.
Like, what gives, Housemark?
What if the boss was just...
Was those 6 guys?
Yeah. Or they make a larger sentient
Oh my gosh.
that spawns small sentients.
It makes me want to cry.
I would break. I couldn't do it.
That would make me that would remind me of the spider things in Killzone Shadowfall.
Oh my gosh. I hated that.
Me too.
What a bad game.
What a bad game.
A game you guys will never hear about.
Yeah.
Because we deleted it.
I still have it.
I guess it's still on Drive.
Yeah. I'm going to delete it after this
ever
podcast.
Yep.
But talk to me, I guess, about the Abyssal Scar. Because we just...
All right. Imagine this.
No, okay, I'm listening.
You go to the community pool, but it's midnight.
Yeah?
And when you get in, there's giant tentacle monsters that kill you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't go where you thought it would.
No.
Well, that's about it.
Okay.
It's, you're floaty. Kind of cool, different gameplay. Feels different. And they have really annoying enemies that just kamikaze into you. I learned that if you don't have an automatic weapon, you're just going to take tons of damage from them. Because you can't shoot them fast enough.
Yes.
Like, I had the lobber the first couple times I went there. It was horrible.
It's a terrible gun to have down there.
I know, you'd kill one, and then like 3 others would just slam their bodies into you from behind. It was horrible. So that was my experience.
Oh, okay.
But a really easy level, especially after the Fractured Waste.
Incredibly easy.
I went through my first time ever in the Abyssal Scar was the time I beat Ophion for the first time.
Me too.
Like, it wasn't very hard. I mean, there's one mini boss that gave me a little bit of trouble the second time I played through, which is kind of like the brute Shrek boys.
Yes.
But they have tentacle legs now. They bothered me if I was in like an enclosed space with them, but once you learn their patterns, they're fine too.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Especially when there was one room that I had where I had to fight like 2 of those guys at a time. Of those big macho guys.
That's not fun.
but it had grapple hook areas, and this is what I was mentioning before, where the grapple hook for combat for me didn't shine until this specific moment where I was able to grapple and launch myself into, the water, but basically into the air, shoot the enemies, and then just keep grappling, going back and forth. Mm-hmm. And it was like using the meat hook in Doom, and how I would use this grapple hook to maneuver around the enemy's bullets while attacking them. Like it really worked for me.
Me too.
But that was it.
It was the way to play.
Yeah.
I think the grapple hook really came into its own. It made it like really added to combat in a fun way. Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think so too.
Nice.
But yeah, we get through the abyssal scar, which is pretty forgettable.
Yes. More like forgettable scar, am I right?
Yes. And we get to Ophion, who is an interesting boss. It's a serpent, a deep sea serpent, like the Loch Ness Monster. Except for it has 3 faces, and one of them is an astronaut helmet.
Yes, and he's not Scottish.
He's not Scottish.
I don't really like his design, now that I think about it.
I don't really like it either.
This game is bad. But no, I don't like the design of Ophion, especially compared to the last couple bosses.
Yeah, like Nemesis is awesome, and Hyperion is meaningful and symbolic. Ixion was interesting and different. Ixion almost reminds me of like a Dark Souls boss or a God of War boss, like a Valkyrie.
Very much.
Yeah.
And
then Frike is Frike. Who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah, Ophion being this weird amalgamation of 3 different faces of a serpent, which is very odd.
Yeah.
And, the colors, like,
wish it was more serpent.
Yeah, I wish it moved around more, because it's a stagnant boss. Very much like Nemesis, but without all of the presentation.
Yeah, I guess the last 3 bosses are all stagnant bosses.
That's interesting, yeah. Didn't even think about that.
Maybe that's why they're so much easier.
Maybe. That's a good point.
I didn't even think about that. Like, there's way more going on the screen, but you don't really have to worry about positioning.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about, like, not hitting them.
At least not in the same way. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
You never have to worry about missing
your
alt fire with Ophion, but you would if you were fighting Ixion or Frike, because they could just dash.
Exactly. It's very, very different. Very interesting. But yeah, I don't love the boss fight. I think it's fun because you feel really good at the game, But other than that, I don't know. I think other bosses have better narrative, like, significance, and I think they're harder and more challenging, and it's an aight way to end the game. I was hoping there'd be a second last boss for the alternate ending. But you just get like a quarter of a cutscene.
Yeah, I guess let's just jump right into that.
Oh, splash.
Yes, splash right in. Let's take a deep dive into how shallow this game ends.
Yes.
Yeah, you kill Ophion. The cycle restarts. You are tasked with getting 6 fragments of a Helios like house ornament, and you burn the house down. So, like, I think you mentioned it earlier, Helios is like the god of sight almost. So once you have all the pieces of Helios, you see the house for what it really is. And then you can see the ending for what it really is, which isn't much.
Yeah, you can see the YouTube search bar where you can find the ending explained.
Yes, honestly. Very, very clever. Very clever.
Yes, that's what I do.
What was I thinking about? Oh, quickly. I don't know if we talked about this before. Where we talked about like how we thought it was going to end. I think we did. We did talk about that. Right?
Did you have a theory that you wanted to talk about?
I do have a theory.
Tell me.
And it's not a theory based on this. It was a theory I had early on in my playthrough of the game. And it's something that maybe it's generic. I think it would have worked. But I thought this game was all about you, because like it shows you crash into the lake, and then Celine sees Octo, the giant squid alien, or I guess octopus alien, and Octo takes you away from that moment, right?
Yes.
And then you're on this loop where you keep dying. I thought the game was gonna be you had to go through the loop over and over again to try to figure out how to get back to your son Helios and save him from the car crash.
Me too. I felt the same thing.
I thought it was going to be a very standard, I'm not trying to say standard in a negative way, but just like this is Groundhog's Day, this is Happy Death Day, where you are going through the loop until you figure out how to fix your problem or save the person,
Yeah, like right your wrong.
Exactly. Like I thought that the White Shadow was Celine coming back to save them or something, to save herself.
Interesting.
Very much like Interstellar, where Matthew McConaughey is all right. Is saving the universe by going back in time. Spoiler alert for...
What does he call his daughter?
Huh?
What does he call his daughter?
Chappaquiddick? I don't know. Like something stupid.
I always think it's like, derp.
Dude. Oh my gosh, what is it? It's something like that.
It's
Not
like
Fern.
derp or something. It's like derp. Some awful... Like it works for the movie. Okay, I'm Googling this. Daughter's name. Interstellar. It's like Durf or something. Murph. Why did I think it was Durf instead of a real name like Murph?
Murph, don't go. I don't know. That's not Matthew McConaughey's voice. I'm sorry, Matthew.
It's close enough.
But I thought it was going to be very straightforward. You save your son. The crash never happens, But no, it happens. You're dead. Everyone's dead. You might be alive, but your son's dead.
He's very dead. What do you... I guess this is definitely jumping forward a bit. But what do you think, like, the message of the game is? Like, what did we learn from this game?
I don't know. Like...
Because it doesn't have, like, a traditionally... I don't know if it has a traditionally, like, moral message, if that makes sense. Like, we learn, like, oh, yeah, her ambition and whatever caused her to neglect her kid.
Yeah, but it's like the whole story of Icarus, flying too close to the sun and your wings.
Is it just that we have to, like, acknowledge the wings? Do we just have to, like, acknowledge where we've gone wrong and, like, stand up to...
And just face your problems head on.
Sins, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And we can find peace by, like, confronting our own evil.
Yeah, by not ignoring it, but by acknowledging it and accepting it.
Mm-hmm. And by punching your mother who is in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I can't wait to do that.
Debbie.
But like, what's the point of getting the car keys at the end if it wasn't to save Helios? Like, I was like, oh, it's actually happening. You get the car keys. You're going back as the White Shadow to save Helios from drowning.
I don't know. Do you think it's like, I don't know, acknowledging that you pulled yourself out because you're the ones with the keys, or is it like just unlocking the memory until you can acknowledge it?
Was she trying to go back in the car because she wished that she was dead too?
Ooh, maybe.
But that doesn't sound like a moral message.
No, and it doesn't lead to that because she escapes.
Yeah, she gets out.
She swims to the surface.
And she yells out for Helios, who's still in the car.
Helios!
Celine, he's still in the car.
Like, we just went over
Just
this.
swim backwards.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. It's really interesting. And like, granted, there doesn't necessarily have to be a moral message, but with a game like this, so concerned with like the neglect of a mother, like you'd think there would be. Or maybe they just don't feel that it needs to be stated, and it's just obvious. But Celine gets off scot-free. I mean, not scot-free. She lost her child.
Yeah.
but like, she lives. You know?
Maybe
maybe that's the point, is you can live through tragedy.
Yeah, maybe there's just like some things happen that are just completely out of your control, and you just have to move on. You know? You didn't pass.
And it's not actually her fault that Helios died.
No.
It was an accident. You know, it's not like she killed her kid. Like,
but it's like you didn't pass the requirements to join Astra or whatever. Move on, you know, just let it go.
Yeah, maybe it's about letting go. Let go of the kid. He's weighing you down.
You say the kiddies?
The kid.
But yeah.
But it is interesting to talk about that because it's unclear. You know?
Yeah, it is interesting. It's like, it is a good game to spark up conversation and to get people talking. Maybe you don't.
Like you guys will be in the comments after you like and subscribe.
That's right. They're definitely not going to do that now.
They were about to.
And then you
finger was
opened
hovering over the button.
big old mouth.
My stupid mouth. Like the trunk of a car in a river. I opened it up and stupid stuff came out.
Bam. I don't know.
Wow. And on that wonderfully somber note, let's move on to some fast ones.
Sounds great. I will, did you write down any fast ones?
Kind of. My fast ones were all just like our stats from the game.
Okay, let's you want to save that for last?
Yeah, we can save the quickest ones for last.
Because that'll just be us reading numbers.
Fast goes last. It's a blast.
Yes. Let's see. Let's start with the first one.
That's a good place
It's a very special one. Our first ever write-in from a fan.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Our good friend Jeremy Williams wrote in.
Jeremy. Yes. Jeremy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
He did write in the comments, Chris.
Someone has to. And
Thank you, Jeremy.
His question is, would it be worth it for them to make a sequel and make it co-op? Or another maybe facet of it could be, would it be worth it for them to make a roguelike that is co-op? Could it work? Like, obviously, narratively, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
But gameplay-wise, it could be interesting. I don't think it would.
Yeah.
Like, it would be really hard to work out. Because, like, co-op with a game like Habroxia 2 would fit really well, I think.
Yeah. It's like a no-brainer.
Yeah. But
I think this game could definitely work with co-op if it was not, like if it just straight up wasn't Returnal. Just because Returnal is all about
the self,
the feeling of loneliness going through pain and grief in a cycle, So like, obviously that wouldn't really work if you were accompanied by a friend. But I think if they could like just paste all of, Returnal's combat and gameplay onto another game, it would be awesome in co-op. It'd be like Enter the Gungeon, but good.
Right? Like they could do a good, almost like a Mercenaries thing, like an add-on. Where it's like you and a friend race to see how many points each person can get.
They kind of have that, but not directly.
Yeah,
not in the same world.
I think another really good idea would be because I'm just full of good ideas.
Look at you.
Is if they had a Dark Souls-esque system where another player could invade your biome and attack you, and it would be, maybe it would be based off of how much they prepared, so they could come into your world as strong or as weak as they want to,
Yeah.
Obviously not overpowered.
I think that's a good idea.
But
yeah, like they'd have to be your proficiency level.
Exactly. Or at least the proficiency level cap that is in that biome,
Yeah. Nah, dude, I think that's a great idea. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So
yeah, maybe if they honestly, I really think they should not sell the game, but if they just did like a definitive or director's cut where they added an actual ending, maybe 2 more bosses, like one for the Fractured Wastes and one after the 3rd act. And then they also add some sort of multiplayer component. I think this game, I mean, it wouldn't hurt the game for sure,
Yeah. They need to add a couple extra cutscenes.
Yeah. Just something to make it more of a full game. Like an all-around good game. Like, finish the circle, guys. You guys got like 3/4 of the way there.
You guys are all about cycles and returning. I mean, that's circles. Just finish it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. No, I think it's an interesting game. I don't think they should make a sequel.
No.
I think this game should just be done in a good way. Like, I think it has a nice resolution. Like there shouldn't be a sequel to Hellblade, but there is. But that's okay. But a similar situation, the story has been told, and it ended well.
I agree.
But I'd like a little definitive edition action. Growl. But
again, thank you, Jeremy. Being our number 1 fan.
Yes.
You will be.
He's gonna win the stickers that I bought that are comically small.
Oh, nice.
They're
you hear that, Jeremy?
You lucky dog.
He's a very nice young man. He's very, very kind, and he came up with a good question.
Thank you, Jer Bear.
Keep them coming. But let's get on. Let's get on to some other fast ones.
I love it.
We already kind of ranked our weapons. But
did we?
Yes, I believe so.
I don't remember because of the time warp. Did we?
I think we did.
I think maybe you're right.
Because I think at mid-conversation, I was like, okay, I was going to save this, but then we went into talking about it. If not, here's just a quick summary.
Yes, just in case.
My favorite, just how about this? Favorite weapon and worst weapon.
All right, easy. Chris is a fraud. The Hollow Seeker's the best weapon. The worst weapon is the pylon driver. I'm kidding. That one's pretty good. It's the worst weapon is the Shredder. I hate that weapon.
Honestly, I don't think I used the Shredder enough. Which one? Was that the one that had like 3 shots and it was like a shotgun? Like it would shoot slugs?
No. It shoots discs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Shredder is the worst and the Driver's the best.
Understandable.
Let's move
I'm
on.
loving it.
Favorite biome, 1, 2, 3, go.
Crimson Waste.
Well, that took you a long time. I agree. Crimson Waste.
I couldn't remember English. That was my
What
problem.
is the
I knew it
worst
was Crimson
biome?
Waste. Ooh. You know, it's hard because like part of me wants to just be like the Abyssal Scar, but there's parts of the Abyssal Scar that are actually really good. Probably the Fractured Waste. Probably. Or maybe the Echoing Ruins. One of the two. One of the reskins.
Sorry, that was probably awful for our listeners.
What just happened?
I went like... I did it again.
Sorry, guys.
I'm having a tough time thinking about it now. Honestly, I think I might... I think there are some redeeming and attractive parts of the Fractured Wastes. I like that it's very bright compared to the rest of the game. And
I love the hub.
Yeah, the hub and the enemies really contrast nicely with the snowy background.
Mm-hmm.
And it has some good mystery in it. Like you find the orbs of Icor.
That's true.
That you never understand why. But I'm gonna say the Overgrown Ruins is my least favorite. Just because of how unremarkable it is. The only thing that like the Echoing Ruins has is obviously the good soundtrack, and I think it just has a really nice flow. Like you start and you go a little further, and then you have that big drop into the boss room. But then from that boss room, you can go into 2 other areas, 2 other paths.
Yeah.
To get some more stuff, and I think I like the Echoing Ruins more than the Overgrown.
Understandable.
Do you have a favorite enemy? Design-wise.
Ooh, do I? Design-wise, like not fighting them?
Or both. I mean, whichever.
You know, I think my favorite enemy is the first mini-boss you fight that shoots the red orbs that go really fast. Like the giant Tegus.
The giant T guy, yeah.
Yeah, I like...
Is this the one that jumps at you?
No, it's the one that shoots.
It's the shooting one. Okay. I like that one.
Yeah, I don't like the one that jumps. I don't like
No
him.
one does.
He's a jerk.
Maybe Kotaku does.
Kotaku would like him. But yeah, no, I like the Tegus. That particular Tegus.
Do you have a...
What's your favorite one?
Wait.
You like the freaking robots.
I like the tall automaton. Yeah.
Disgusting. Oh, I actually like that one. That's the only automaton I like.
The really tall one. I like that one a lot. Like if I could get a statue of anything from this game, it would be that. He's just so cool looking. It's just very
guy.
Interesting. Because you almost have to think like story-wise. Where do the robots come into play? Killing the Severed and killing the...
I don't know.
Atropians or whatever. It's interesting.
I don't know, man.
A discussion for
if
another
that
day.
is, maybe. I was like, I don't know what that means for the story either.
Huh. I totally forgot about them until this point. Like, what do they mean for Celine?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I have no idea.
I don't think Housemarque even knows.
Probably not. Maybe they do. Maybe they'll tweet back at us when we post this and tell us how stupid we are.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that.
I can't wait to tweet them until they block us.
I know, right?
I think we can both agree that the worst enemy is either the flying kamikaze robots or the blue Severed. Is that accurate? Okay, good.
Yeah, they're just not balanced enough. They both need to do just a little bit less
They're
damage.
obscenely annoying.
It's just unbearable. Like,
Really,
it's too
they're
much.
overwhelming.
And like not in a fun way.
Yeah,
In a
the
way
worst
that
way
is
possible.
simply annoying.
Like to the point where my head is swelling. Like my brain is swelling out of my skull.
I'm sweating right now at the thought.
Swelling.
Sweating and swelling.
Oh, whoa.
I know.
I guess let's rank the bosses really quick while we're at it.
Easy peasy.
Let's start from the worst. And how about this?
Frike.
We'll have a shared list. So we have to both agree on this.
Interesting. I would say Frike.
I agree,
Probably the
Frank.
worst.
Actually,
Next is
I don't know, Ophion.
I don't hate Ophion enough.
But
I think he's a fun boss.
But Frike is kind of interesting being this one, like the very first severed, being cast down. But I guess
It's interesting.
Ophion was cast down also. It has more symbolic nature with Greek mythology. So yeah, Frike is the worst. You're right.
Yes. Suck it, Frike.
Yeah. Stupid Frike.
Then probably Ophion is second worst.
I like it.
Then Ixion.
Yeah, I like Ixion being right in the middle.
I think that's where he belongs. What and then I think it's really a toss up. I mean, I think if you really enjoy the music, then it's going to be Hyperion.
Uh-huh.
And if you really enjoy just the set piece, it's going to be Nemesis.
Yeah.
And I like Hyperion more, but I think you like
I
Nemesis.
do
more.
like, I almost feel like Nemesis was more of an Uncharted type boss, if I say so myself. Not a Lazarevich, but more of what's his name? Navarro.
Oh, like a QTE.
Almost like a QT, where it's like the boss challenge comes from maneuvering around your surroundings. Because like shooting him isn't hard. Dodging his bullets is incredibly easy. It's pretty. It's beautiful. But the most challenging part is just making sure that you're level-headed and, you got your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
So, from a boss perspective, I will say that Hyperion is a better boss and has really good symbolism and meaning for the story. Nemesis doesn't have so much of that.
Yes.
So I'll give it to you. Hyperion is number one.
Yes.
With my fingers
I am number one.
crossed. Okay, how about this? If you had to live in one of them, which biome are you living in?
Gosh. Like none. Let me think. I'd rather die. Man, I mean, probably the overgrown ruins. Because at least I can eat the plants.
Could
Like, I mean, probably more easily than the sand. Or the snow. And like, what else is there? I mean, the easiest enemies live there. And you don't need the grapple hook to survive. Whereas if you go to the Citadel, you're just stranded in that first area because you can't use a grapple hook.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's probably what I would do. And there's no malignant stuff, so I could eat all the Sylphium on the ground, like a gopher. Where were we? Oh yeah, the place you'd like to live. Where would you want to live?
The Abyssal Scar.
So you die quicker.
I'd rather drown. No,
Dang, that's horrendous.
Overgrown Ruins or the Echoing Ruins. Maybe not the Echoing Ruins because of the song.
Ooh, then you can die in peace
Yeah.
listening to the nice song. And then get exploded by
But
rockets.
with the overgrown ruins, is that perpetual nighttime?
Maybe. This is what I would do. I would just go into my settings and turn up the brightness.
Oh, there you go. Just kind of a throwaway question. Could you survive the loop?
I mean, technically, it is literally impossible to survive the loop.
You're right.
You
Good
fool.
answer.
And yes, I could.
Yes. Okay, quickly, just think of, don't rank all of them, but just think of the top Sony studios. Where do you think Housemarque ranks now in this PlayStation family? They're not acquired yet. I hope they are soon.
I don't know.
But
I don't know if they did enough to. I mean, they're not touching Naughty Dog. If we're like being honest with ourselves,
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they're really touching. Cory Barlog's Santa Monica. Sorry, it was like Cory Barlog's studio. They're really not anywhere close to God of War 2018. I mean, that game's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm. They're not Insomniac.
I don't know. They're not Insomniac. I mean, Spider-Man's amazing.
And they're definitely not Sucker
It's an
Punch.
achievement. And they're not, you know what I mean? So
Number
I
6.
think they're in the family, but they're kind of at the bottom of the family. They need to prove themselves still.
They're kind of
this game
like
had a lot of mistakes.
They're kind of like an outside dog.
Oh my gosh. They're not even an inside dog. But it has a nice doghouse
It's like they're
with an auto feeder.
like an outside dog that came in the house and peed a little. You know?
Yes. And then got punished
And they got,
by Santa Monica.
or it's like your neighbor came into your house and baked you 5 cakes, but one of the cakes had like too much salt in it.
Dang. Or they use salt instead of flour.
Oh my gosh.
The point is they're not necessarily there yet.
They're getting there. I
I think they're getting close, but
it's very impressive what they were able to do with the DualSense and the 3D audio.
mm-hmm.
And just it's a masterclass of a demo for the SSD.
100%.
You know,
Everything about the PS5, yeah.
it's crazy. But
It is.
yeah, it's not you know, surface level and maybe even some of the flesh. It's not the best narrative. You really have to really study some stuff and really go deep into it just to get a glimpse of narrative. And that's coming from someone who really enjoys Bloodborne and the Dark Souls series, which is about like all you do is read things to understand.
Yeah, I think that the reason that it's a problem in this game is because it touts itself as a narrative adventure.
Yeah.
Like, if it didn't claim that, it wouldn't be a problem, you know?
I agree.
But, like, yeah, just, if we claimed to know anything about what we're talking about, we'd be a bad podcast. But since we don't, we're the best podcast in existence.
That's right. Number 1, baby.
Number 1.
Let's see. It's a fun one. Describe this game in 3 movies.
Oh. The first one that comes to mind is Aliens. Definitely.
I like it.
Not Alien. Not Alien Covenant. Not Alien 3. Aliens. Then Interstellar. And lastly, I don't know, Source Code. Groundhog Day.
I like it.
I
have to just agree with you. Interstellar came to mind as soon as Interstellar immediately came into mind when we got into the echoing ruins.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say aliens, I get more Prometheus vibes, or even Predator vibes.
I could see that too, especially in the first area.
Yeah.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper. And then, yeah, like Groundhog's Day, Source Code.
Palm Springs.
Trying to think of another one that might be make more sense.
Because I feel like none of the time loop movies really fit.
Yeah, they really don't. I mean, there was that one movie with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt.
Ooh, Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, Edge of
that
Tomorrow.
Actually works really well. There's a lot of tentacles.
Well, there you go. Perfect.
Just Google which movie has the most tentacles.
Don't do that.
Yeah, do not do that at home. Do not do that anywhere if you wish to have sight.
Stop.
Because otherwise
turn off the computer now.
Back away, Jeremy.
Jeremy,
There's another movie.
Throw the phone.
Jeremy, no.
Throw the phone.
Don't do it. But another movie I thought of is Arrival with
hey.
Yeah. I don't know why, but
you know what? No, Annihilation comes to mind also. Have you ever seen that?
There you go. I've seen a lot of trailers for it. So,
it's a really good movie.
But I get the vibe from it. Yeah.
It's a really good movie, and it's very symbolic.
Is it a little spooky?
It's a little spooky, and it deals with some time stuff, and
well,
all around.
I can't wait to force my wife to watch it.
Good luck.
Yep. Good luck.
I would ask, like, how would you compare this story to other sci-fi games? But that was before I beat the game when I made that question. So,
but I actually think that this story is a classic sci-fi story.
Do tell.
So, sci-fi is really interesting. I think that it's a genre that is just totally different from like any other genre that we often read. Like there's like biographies. Obviously, that's not really a genre, but it's a class of narrative, right? There's like stuff that's like nonfiction, but there's stuff that's fiction, but it's based in like our reality. There's fantasy, but I think that science fiction is all about asking questions about like the human condition and putting like normal situations in outer space so we can see them from a different perspective. Like that's the point, right? Like the reason that we talk about AI and like, Isaac Asimov's robot, it's not because we actually care about AI, although it is an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to show us how we treat people, right?
Yeah.
Like how we treat the robots is how we treat maybe another race or another group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with like Ender's Game, right? It's all about understanding our Earth problems from a space perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's the entire point of Returnal, right? She's trying so hard to understand her own grief and pain that she has to put it in outer space to be able to gain a new perspective and like see it for what it actually is.
Wow.
So I think it's a classic sci-fi narrative in a way.
Wow. You put me in my place. That was very astute.
Slap.
Very good job, Josh.
Get down, boy.
What kind of game should Housemarque make after this? I think we can both agree that they can't go back to the 2D space.
Yeah,
because it would
just
look
succeeded too
like
much.
Yeah, it would really look like a demotion, honestly. Downgrade.
I agree. I think it's hard because they have to do the bullet hell because that's their thing,
Yes.
So I feel like they should do another third-person action game,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want it to be similar to Returnal in narrative at all. Kind of, but I want it to be like a horror game, so it's kind of hard. Like I want a horror game, but I also want it to stay a bullet hell and an action game because they did so good at it.
I don't want a roguelike. That I know for certain.
I don't either. Yeah.
I don't
done
think I ever want to play another roguelike in my life.
Can I tell you something that I
Please.
thought was really interesting about this game
Yeah, go ahead.
in regards to it being a roguelike? So, I think that the reason this may seem obvious, but the reason I didn't like this game being a roguelike wasn't because I don't like roguelikes. It's because this is not a very good roguelike.
It's not.
And what I mean by that is, like, for example, my favorite roguelike is Risk of Rain, the original one. You can tell because it doesn't have a 2 at the end. Anyways, so I really like Risk of Rain because the items you get completely change the way you play. And they make a huge difference, right? Like, you'll get an item that's like, you can't shoot, but melee is 300% stronger.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
for sure.
Like, it's huge changes. And this game, it was too scared to do that, right? Like, there'd be items that were like, for example, the parasites. Most of the parasites were just really bad, Every item you find should be really good if you're willing to give up something bad. But the parasites never gave you anything good enough, right?
Honest, like the ones that would drive me insane were like, you can have, like, they're like, hey, we'll give you 20% more melee damage for the next 15 enemies, but after that, you have 1 HP. It's like,
No.
what? Why would I ever agree to this?
You survive a killing blow, but then you die. Like, what?
Yeah. But then you're given 3 critical malfunctions, and you have 2 seconds to complete them.
I know, right? Like, the best thing is when it's like, your Obolite, like, collection radius increases by 30%, but your mom will never speak to you again. Like, just like, they're so horrible.
No one will ever remember it's your birthday ever again. Which actually is a good thing. But yeah,
But yeah, the point of that being that when you play a roguelike, you should be able to find an item that changes your playstyle, and then you should be able to find other items that build on that till you have a specific way to play, like the entire run, right? Like, they should have been parasites that were like, if you're using a Dreadbound, you get 50% extra damage. Or if you're using the Lobber, you get, a 25 increase to speed. Or, I know that's broken,
yeah.
but they could have worked around that, because that's the point of a roguelike. At least in my mind it is. To like have different runs that are completely different because you play different.
Yeah,
and you use
and,
different
like,
weapons.
I wish there were more items where there are buffs, like you just said, like something that would make you just move 15% faster. That'd be crazy. Or like,
Right?
what if you had floating
yes.
jumps?
I was literally about to say, like, more air control. Yes.
Like, that would be
More air
awesome.
control, floatier jumps.
Like what if you found a jetpack? Why wasn't there a jetpack?
Why wasn't there a double jump? This game
Why
needs
wasn't there a
jump.
double jump? I thought
I'm
that
with you,
all
bro.
the time.
I was just waiting for it the entire game, and it never happened.
Me too. I was like, oh, it's coming, right?
No, it's not.
No, you just have the one standard jump that it's not even like a moon jump or something. The gravity is the same.
Human jump. Darn it, Atropus. But yeah, it's that's what I think. I think that all the items, artifacts, and parasites should have made bigger differences and had synergy.
Had greater
it
rewards
never really felt
with
like that.
greater risks.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
I like.
And I wish that a lot of them had to do with the weapon you were using.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Like, double your ammo capacity, right? Or like, shoot twice as fast, or shoot half as fast but do 3 times as much damage.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that, I
You
don't
know what
know.
was kind of weird? Did you ever get
Tell
the
me.
thing where it's like the artifact that would give your dash a boost?
Yeah, the plane or whatever.
It didn't do anything. It just made it red.
I think I know, right? I think what it did was do damage.
That's stupid. I was hoping like I could dash for longer or faster.
Me too. Like a much faster cooldown
Yeah.
or something.
Like
Infinite dash.
Like, it would have been kind of cool if... have you played Infamous Second Son?
No.
Okay, so one of the powers in the game is neon. And you're
I
invulnerable
actually
while
know
you're,
this, though.
like, using the neon dash. And, like, you could dash forever, pretty much. I thought that would have been kind of cool. Or, like, if every other frame or something, you didn't take damage while you're doing it.
I think it'd be cool.
And it was, like, on a recharge or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, they could have done... This is a great third-person bullet hell game. But it's not a very good roguelike. And it's not a fantastic story. It has... Like, 2/3 of the story is complete. We're still waiting for that third. That we'll never get.
Yeah, it's like, it is a good story, but you have to work way too hard to get it, and it's not good enough to work that
Or I
hard
guess
for it.
you just listen to us.
Or you could just listen to us in Yoder.
Yep.
Bada bing, bada,
Bada
boom.
bing, bada boom. And that is it for my fast ones. Let's go over our stats, Josh.
All right, let me ask ya. How many times did you die?
I died 58 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I was surprised. I thought you would have died way less. Because I thought you were good at video games.
I died a lot during the Blue Severed guys. But I really died a lot from just... I don't know if the cycle, like resetting cycles counts as deaths. Do they?
I don't know. I was going to ask you that because I reset
later,
probably at least 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, because later in my playthroughs, I started just resetting all the time. But honestly, I think I died... More than half those deaths are from the fractured wastes. Like, straight up.
Yeah. No, I died 39 times, and I think that probably at least 15 of them are the fractured waste, and I'd probably say 9 of them are resetting, and the rest are like falling off of ledges when I had no health.
Yeah.
So, really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And then, how many... And I think we already talked about this, but you only died multiple times to Frike. Every other boss was a sweep, right?
Yep.
Nice. All right, how many areas did you explore?
279.
What is going on? I did 289.
What?
Yeah.
You make me sick.
I'm better than you in every way. Yes. What's your max adrenaline reached?
42.
58.
Dang, dude.
Apparently, I'm really good at this game.
Apparently.
Successful overloads.
977.
Ooh, you're good at those, though. I had 711.
Oh, okay.
I used the Dreadbound, though, for a pretty significant portion of the game. And the Dreadbound doesn't have overloads, so maybe that's why. Malfunctions.
43.
81.
Wow.
I accepted every malfunction. I didn't care.
Bet you did.
I was like constantly picking up things that were malignant. How many parasites?
I got 75.
Ooh, you did a lot of parasites, though. I only did 44.
Look at you. How much time? How many guys did you kill, by the way?
Oh, I didn't look. Because I think it only tells you how many people you've killed in the last hour, right?
No, I have hostiles eliminated. I have 3,600.
Oh, darn it. You know what? Let me go look really fast. Let me go look. Is it just... Oh, no, I deleted the game.
Oops.
Never mind. It's probably around there. Probably 3,000, 4,000, something like that. That's a bummer. I must have not seen that stat.
I'm sorry.
Let me see. Maybe it is on here. Because I took a picture.
It's right under areas explored.
What? Oh, yeah. 4,208.
Yeah, nice.
How many did you kill?
3,600.
Much less.
Much less.
All right, tell me, how much time did you spend in the suit?
1 day, 12 hours, 29 minutes, and 54 seconds.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? I spent a day, 8 hours, 27 minutes, and 19 seconds. Maybe you left yours, like, chilling or something for a while.
maybe. I don't know. I spent a long time doing the surveys and just running through, skipping all the enemies and just trying to find audio logs or the ciphers.
Did you ever complete a survey?
No, I never completed one.
I had the overgrown ruins at 97%. And
I have.
I was like, I'm not doing it.
I have that at 99 right now.
Yep. You probably need like one more thing.
Yep. And I'll never do it because
Dang.
I just don't accept it. I don't agree.
It's too much for me. That is interesting though. I don't think I've ever had better stats than you in a game ever.
I don't think
in my entire life.
Everybody loves golf, or everybody's gone golfing.
Well, that's not a game.
Everybody's
Chris.
gone
That's
to
a
the
lifestyle,
golf course.
Everybody's gone to the golf course. We've been playing a lot of golf recently, my wife and I.
I bet.
I don't know if you've noticed. We logged another 10 hours probably this last 2 weeks.
You make me sick.
Much better than Returnal.
To be honest, I'm playing Resident Evil 8 Village right now, and man, it is such a blast. It has a good story. It's fun.
Dang.
And I like Hyroxia 2 is a better game than Returnal.
Dang. Dude, your tune has changed so much from the first 5 minutes of this episode.
But no, but
What
like
happened?
the game is great. But they're like, honestly, it is a better game than Hyroxia 2. But just the fact of how random the story items are,
Yeah.
insane. It's like,
I agree.
what were you thinking? It's a terrible, terrible game if you like trophies or if you like story.
I would say that's probably what got you is we started talking about the surveys and it broke you.
Don't ever bring up a survey to me ever again.
Like this place. Wow. And with that,
You hear me, Housemark?
okay, calm down, Cliff. And with that death threat, we leave you.
We love
But the game's good. Get it when it's on sale.
Yeah,
Bye.
I think
No, we love you guys.
What do you think is the most appropriate price to pay?
$40.
$40?
$40 is the correct price to pay for this game.
I agree with you. $40 is a perfect price. But I'm happy I paid the
It's
premium.
good. It's worth a lot, and like I don't mind having paid $70. I'm okay with it, you know. But like just trying to recommend it to others, I wouldn't get it if it wasn't $40. And it will be.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure.
You know, another problem with its roguelike nature is that once you complete the story, there's no real reason to go back. Besides,
Yeah,
unless you're
because
trying to do
it's
the
not-
stupid surveys,
I
but
don't know.
you know, those are like asking someone to. I don't even want to say what horrible acts.
Oh, no.
It's
I
like
agree.
telling someone to turn into a wheelchair. It's
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
just
Just
impossible.
tedious, boring.
And only by the faintest and furthest luck that you could ever reach could it ever be possible.
I like the idea that with just a little bit of luck, you could become a wheelchair.
I think anything's possible.
Anything's possible. I like it. But yeah, it's a somewhat frustrating experience.
Yeah.
It's like a 5-minute story that took us 36 hours to complete. It was almost like a WoW quest. Like, really bizarre. But it was good. I'm glad I played it.
That first 20
definitely
hours
glad
are
I
really
played
good, though.
Very much so, man. Just honestly, beat the first 20 hours and then just listen to the podcast.
Finished Act 2.
Don't bother.
You're good to go.
I definitely would not recommend doing the sun discs or like the sun pieces.
No.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I should have freaking YouTubed it. I'm really sad that I
almost,
spent
because I got
12
it
hours of my
before you,
life.
I almost told you just YouTube it, but I wanted you to.
suffer.
Yeah. I also didn't want to put like a negative, like, first impression on you,
Yeah.
but
I was pissed. Yeah. Grace was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Game sucks." And then I understood the story more, and I was like, I'm kind of okay with it. But
did like 2 hours of research.
Yes. It turned out all right. But we thank you guys so much for listening. It was awesome. We enjoyed it. We thank you, Jeremy, for writing in. We encourage everyone to write in. I think what's our next topic going to be, Chris? So they can actually know what to write in about.
I think it's going to be it doesn't matter.
It's Diablo
3.
Is the next one we're actually recording.
Yeah.
The next one we're posting, we did like months ago. But the next one we're recording is Diablo 3. So if you have any questions or comments or memories or fast ones for us, shoot them on in, man.
Please do.
Please do.
And don't forget to listen to us on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and
not Apple Podcasts.
Maybe one day Apple Podcasts.
If we can get our crap together,
if they
just do it.
Can stop being so stingy.
Jerks.
But yeah, thank you guys. We love you.
Thank you. We love you guys. Adios. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.